how are we going to do this?
Well, we're live already.
Oh, we are live already. Fantastic. That makes it a lot easier.
So now everyone knows how we're going to run this with absolutely no order whatsoever. But yeah,
Crowdy.
we planned this stream last week or something. I wanted to do this to promote your channel and kind of talk to you because I've been watching your videos for 3 months or something, and I like your content quite a lot. And
that last one of yours, Jeff, is fucking awesome. What was your last one about?
It was about the MTV trying to talk about like how men can help stop rape culture. It was just a hot fucking mess of a video.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that stream on my live stream channel, but since things happened today pretty much, and in the last 2 days, I guess I just thought I'd move it to the main channel because it's much more important of a topic. Yeah, I guess all of you have by now noticed that YouTube changed its terms of services to include regulations on harassment and cyberbullying, such as harassment and cyberbullying may include abusive videos, comments, messages, revealing someone's personal information, maliciously recording someone without their consent, deliberately posting content in order to humiliate someone, making hurtful and negative comments, videos about another person, unwanted sexualization, which encompasses sexual harassment or sexual bullying in any form, incitement to harass others or creators. And then there's the old hate speech terms of service on YouTube, which are hate speech refers to content that promotes violence or hatred against individuals or groups based on certain attributes such as race or ethnic origin, religion, disability, gender, age, veteran status, sexual orientation, gender identity. Why the fuck gender and then mention gender identity? That doesn't make any sense.
Hey, there's IIS is in the chat. We should come in, IIS.
Who is in the chat?
Atheism is unstoppable.
Yeah, I sent him the invite via Twitter, and he's the guy. Yeah,
who got his channel
got taken down. Yeah, today. And yeah, fuck. So
it's
now
insane.
For hate speech or something. I hope you can come on and explain it to us in more detail. But it seems like we're pretty much fucked now, because according to these little. Yeah.
I think it was like he had a video that was called like Meet a Muslim. I didn't actually get a chance to watch the video. I'm not subscribed to him, but did anybody in here did they watch the video?
I didn't. Was that just a recent one?
It's just very recent, yeah.
No, there's a couple of real recent ones I haven't watched.
But it's still the very concept of it, the very idea that somebody's spoken word, somebody's opinion can be constituted as hate speech. I mean, was he proselytizing in his video about how we need to like go out and kill somebody, or we need to like cause harm to a group of people?
Of course he wasn't. He wouldn't do that. I mean, and that's what hate speech should be. It should be go and harm this person. Go and physically harm this person.
He just mentioned in the chat 2 strikes, both from Muslim vids.
Copyright strikes or community strikes.
I think it's hate speech strikes actually because of the new terms of service.
That makes sense because what's his name? Amos Yee's channel also got into trouble by Muslims who sent him reported him for hate speech and shit like that. I got a lot of shit from Muslims. 2 of them actually tried to dox me last week, and yeah, fuck. Yeah,
I wish you could sort your audio AIS. I'd love to speak to you about this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can find a way to get your microphone working properly, you should definitely hop in with us, Devin. And that's really the thing, though. Ultimately, like, so I am familiar with Atheism is Unstoppable, and I've liked some of his content. I've also not liked some of his content. The general presentation that he gives, I won't say I'm necessarily that big of a fan of, but I absolutely celebrate and I respect in every single way that somebody has the ability to express themselves however they want to, and the very notion that somebody could take that away from him is just monstrous.
I've become a big fan. I reckon he's an arrogant, self-righteous cunt, and I reckon it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'll give him respect for that. Absolutely.
It's the fact that the people who are reporting is because I thought in the beginning that it would mainly be the social justice whinies who would be going after our channels and reporting them left, right, and forward. Maybe they will start doing so after they notice that. Yeah, I think a lot of these Muslim fanatics who are on YouTube, there are a lot of Muslim fanatic YouTube channels, and certainly more followers of these channels. They have less inhibitions to just report everyone left, right, and forward. That inhibition is probably lacking. I mean, most of these people don't even believe that there is something as free speech, and
The
they
very
might.
concept to him is alien. Absolutely.
Yeah. So they're probably going to. I don't think. Bearing. Yeah, all of you in here, you haven't yet made any videos tackling any kind of Islamists on YouTube. But all of us who do, are going to get into trouble now.
I don't know enough about the issue, to be honest with you.
Well, I mean, I did make that song about Islam, so...
Well, congratulations, but it's... Yeah. And I'm pretty sure that as soon as the social justice whinies will notice that, and notice that these people get away with it, because remember, YouTube does not punish people who abuse the flagging system. People who false flag people, who deliberately false flag people, are not punished.
And it's been like that for years.
Yeah.
But what's a false flag? What's a false flag? I mean, if I flag someone, I mean, not that I would, but if I was a fucking idiot and I flagged someone and said this video is offensive, how can they say, well, that's a false flag? I mean, I was offended in this scenario. You know?
I suppose it should be just like some sort of punishment for wasting their time with the system or something.
Yeah, but what's the mechanism that determines that was a false report? You know?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: if the flagging meets the requirements, it's not a false flag. If it doesn't, well, it's a false flag.
Yeah, I mean, there doesn't appear to actually be a mechanism that decides if it's a false flag or not. It seems like it's a case-by-case kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fucking scary.
You know, on the topic of making content specifically about Islam too, you know, like I've had this constant internal struggle that I've been dealing with ever since this whole big explosion of Orlando happened, and even before that. Of how much participation I actually want to engage in. And what's horrible, I can go toe-to-toe with ideologues in the Western world day in and day out. I'll put my face out there, I will challenge them. I've had people threaten to get me kicked out of college for my ideas. That's one thing. But to say that I don't have hesitation about making a video critical of Islam because I do put my face out there, because I do present a very public image of myself, I do have that hesitation, and that's not just because
you're right.
It's not just because it's a tough topic, but it's because this is a salient threat. This is a real thing that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right, because when I made that video about Saleh, and the first Muslims started turning up, I thought at first they were just shitposting. You know, I thought these were 15, 17-year-olds because they posted stuff like, "We're going to find your real address and kill you," and shit like that. And I thought they were joking and stuff like that. And little did I know, two of them actually did try to dox me. Actually did try to find out who I am. And
How did you know that, if you mind me asking?
Because they added me on Skype and called me and tried to get my IPN.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, as far as to answer your question, Bearing, doxing could be as simple as just searching your username and seeing what else comes up. You know, people just can do simple Google searches and find things. Like, for instance, when the Orlando shooting happened, as soon as the guy's name was out there, Feminist Flow was able to find his MySpace page and like which party he was registered to vote for and all kinds of stuff.
Your MySpace page is already fucking in the public domain. There's nothing. I mean, I wouldn't consider publishing someone's fucking MySpace URL doxing. How is that doxing?
Well, I mean, it can lead you to other things. You know, you can make these connections and eventually get to someone's real name, or get to, you know, once you have their full name, you can do all kinds of things. You can find all kinds
but
of things.
The issue isn't finding it. I think the issue is publishing it. I mean, you've got the right to investigate anything you want. The
Right, I
issue
mean,
is
that's-
when
The thing is, though, is if you
Yeah.
have someone who is really motivated and wants to dig up dirt on you, the thing is they can find out your
He's
name
here.
easily if it's
He
connected
is here.
yeah,
The
it,
guy
it,
who-
with cached,
The guy who
Cash
actually
websites.
tried to dox me is in the chat.
what's his name?
Oh, that's
Mohammed
cute.
Karim.
Oh, I
Oh,
just saw him. Yeah.
He's the one who tried to debate you in that recent stream.
Yeah, he's
Is it
also the one who
Mohammed
tried to get
Hakim?
my IPN.
Well, have you?
That's-
Did you debate him? Why don't you just have a debate and sort your
No.
differences
I
out?
just casually invited him into the stream with Amos Yee because he threatened to kill me and he threatened to kill Amos Yee. And I said, okay, come on the stream and explain to us why we should be killed. And yeah, he actually tried to get my IPN and dox me.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is obviously not interested in having a civil discourse about anything. He just wants to harm you and put your personal information out there. And by the way, Muzzy, if you're still listening, you kill yourself. If you don't like it, go listen to something else, you piece of shit.
That's the joy of living in a Western world. If you don't like what if you don't like what you're listening to, you can always just change the channel.
Yeah.
You want to know the best part about that, though? You're probably more likely to be banned now, Edgy, than that Mohammed guy for, even, not so much insulting you, but trying to dox and, all of this malicious intent in the first place.
Well, isn't that the modern narrative around terror to begin with?
Oh, yeah, ain't he?
Yeah.
What's up, Nick? It's
Hello, horny guy.
the whole concept
way,
of this
guys.
is just absolutely insane. The concept that having a differing opinion is somehow more offensive than somebody expressing that their religious values mean that you should be killed. It's
And that's
insanity.
it. These people have no inhibitions. I mean, talk about the social justice warriors as much as you want. If you give a Laurie Penny a gun, she won't put a bullet between your head. She will have hesitations, but these people, they don't have any hesitations. They don't have any fucking inhibitions.
And so why is it that this guy can say something and he doesn't get these ramifications, but yet it is likely that you will? Is it merely the fact that they are willing to
He is
flag
brown.
and we're not?
Well, that
He's
I mean,
brown.
I would offer too, though, that even in your invocation of Laurie Penny, those of the mentality of Laurie Penny, those who think such as she do, and those who've worked their way into places of authority at places like Google and YouTube and other social media outlets, they're almost two sides of the same threatening coin. On the one hand, we have barbarous madmen who think that simply for a difference of opinion warrants somebody deserving to be killed, and then we have others who either out of fear of further provoking these insane people or otherwise feeling some sort of sense of guilt that they owe them the right to be this barbaric and murderous, they want to make sure that nobody has a chance to offend their delicate sensibilities. And let's not parse words here either. For all of the posturing and violence and madness that goes on, it is a series of very delicate sensibilities which cannot be perturbed in the least, lest they wrought this fucking violence and threats upon people whose only crime is thinking differently than they do.
Yeah. I mean, and Wizard, I would add to that I think another element of it is that the regressives, the SJWs, whatever you'd like to call them, they're scared of criticizing these people, because their own sensibilities should be offended by the barbarity of Islamic beliefs, and yet they're probably afraid themselves of the potential consequences of that. Now, they may never admit that, but I think that's the case.
They're also just so self-flagellating that they need to find a way to blame not necessarily themselves, but those around them for these actions, because they're just like any sort of mad person who decides that they have a right to kill another person. There's no culpability there. These people, these crazy people, they're just a product of an environment that has been created by others who are, in this case, particularly us. We who defend free speech, rational thinking, critical inquiry, and open and free discourse. We are the cause of this madness and barbarity. It couldn't be anything else, and to suggest such is insulting to these people who, to my mind, if they're calling for the deaths of people simply on the basis of the opinion, insult is the very least of which they deserve.
I think that a lot of the social justice YouTube community, if you can call it that, I mean, most of you probably noticed this fucking hideous Proud to Be campaign that YouTube launched yesterday, which was an absolute failure, essentially trying to promote genderqueer, whatever the fuck, YouTubers with barely 65 subscribers.
I haven't seen it. I'm
ending
gonna
up-
look at this.
You have to.
It's pretty glorious because Poll and some other boards on 4chan actually started vote brigading it, and it's at almost 200,000 downvotes now to 140,000 upvotes.
Yeah, I love Paul. Sometimes I really love Paul. But yeah, anyway, these people, I don't think that, you know, they probably noticed that the systems in the TOS, they probably noticed the differences, the new changes to the terms of service. But I don't think that they have the inhibitions to just go full retard and just false flag everyone. You know, they could right now, if they wanted to, they could take down Sargon's channel. They could.
Oh yeah, that
Oh,
could
yeah.
absolutely happen.
Absolutely.
It would take 3 people. 3 people and anybody's channel could get taken down with the way this system is in place.
You know, if you consider, well, let's consider.
But they're
this
not.
with the
They're not
context.
doing it right now.
Twitter bans.
They're not doing it. Because I believe they have, at least to a certain degree, the inhibition that they know that if they go for that, there will be severe consequences. They know
And
that
so,
if
and so
they...
under this system, sorry to butt in, it is simply that the larger your channel is, the more you are at risk. Because the bigger the audience you have, the more people you're going to have in that audience that disagree with you. Correct?
Well, at the same time, consider the issue. We've gone through this similarly with Twitter, with the Twitter bans and de-verifications and shadow bans and all of that other nonsense. The more it came out, people are not stupid, and it's very easy to see this kind of insipid shit when it presents itself. And when it does, what happens every time somebody of prominence finds themselves banned? They become the center of attention. Their works, their words, their persona, their brand. How do you think Milo Yiannopoulos even happened? Milo's even chuckling at the fact that
the concern is, though, Nick, what about the poor bastards that are just under that threshold?
The thing is, however, I'm pretty sure that AIU's channel was taken down by Muslims. I'm pretty damn sure about it, because it's mainly, I believe, the followers of this Saleh and Karim guy who noticed because Saleh made a video about Amos Yee, and then they flooded his video, tried to take his channel down, and then they went over to Logic to try to get Logic's channel down. From Logic, they then moved to my channel and tried to get me down. Only a fraction of those that moved to Logic, but still quite a sizable amount.
Yeah, well,
and I guess some of them now noticed AIU's channel.
this is all at the forefront of this. This is, I mean, you know, I can't say that it's a brand new thing, but it's new enough to the point where we're starting to sort out and find out how these things play out and what we've seen from history with this. I mean, this is a new front in the free speech fight, but it always ends up the same way. The more you try to silence people simply to protect the delicate sensibilities or to not offend the perpetually offended, the more you draw attention to them. It's that Streisand effect, really. And it'll take down lots of channels. You're right. Smaller channels who may not have the attention, may not have the ability to fight back or recoup what they lost. That is effectively casualties in what is a fight. But what happens is that the message and the cause remains the same. And the people who are dedicated to defending free speech against any form of banal madness or murderous intent, it will not back down. And for every time a large voice is taken down, they will find a new outlet, and they will find themselves walking into that new outlet with people who had never even heard of them. In some ways, these crusaders who want to basically dismantle free society from whatever side, left, right, or theocracy they come from, do themselves a disservice every time they try and silence a voice.
There's also a really intrinsic factor about this that's kind of it's unfortunate. We're dealing with a platform that it's a privately owned company, you know, and it's true that we have right now with YouTube the largest platform ever in the history of mankind, that anybody can espouse their opinion, they can put forth their face, their ideas, their words, but it is still a private company. And what's terrifying to me about this whole situation is that they're absolutely within their legal rights to curtail whatever kind of speech they want. They can shut down AIU. They can shut down anybody if they wanted to. There's no legal precedent that they can't. But because YouTube is such a powerful global force, at least in the realm of ideas, the only way that you can actually combat against this, because there is no legal precedent for it, is simply with pressure. With as Nick was saying, you know, as you try and silence people's ability to espouse ideas, those ideas become louder. And that's really the only thing that we have as a weapon against it, because there is no way we can sue YouTube.
I think the best weapon we have is our community here.
Well, it's market. I mean, let's
I think what I'm going to do once this stream is over is upload AIU's video, mirror it. And I strongly suggest to anyone watching and anyone participating in this to mirror it as well. I might add a short clip explaining what is going on, since he told us that, yeah, this is due to Muslims flagging his channel, but this is what I'm going to do. And I mean, as much as some of us may disagree with each other and have our differences, we still have a community.
More than that, though, I mean, let's take an interesting perspective on this. Yeah, so let's take the social justice menace that we initially all really sort of formed up to fight against, prior to Islamism becoming a subject as much. Now, these are people who like to say, you know, they like to sort of inflect a Marxist perspective, a lens on everything that goes on. Well, let's take the inverse and consider market dynamics in this sense. What market dynamics on YouTube have demonstrated when you compare social justice channels and quote-unquote communities versus those of us who are opposed to such, what we find is that the market demands rational discourse and critical inquiry about these things. They're not interested in listen and believe. The only people who are the denizens of the social justice world, who themselves are incapable of really affecting change outside of when they get to positions such as Google. Now, Google itself has shareholders. Now, if this mass banning bullshit, these pulling down channels because of wrongthink, becomes an established and recognized norm, what do you think that's going to do to the share price of YouTube? What do you think the investors and the shareholders themselves are going to think when they start noticing that the political posturing of the millennials who have taken over in the social media world is costing them money, and that other people are making gobs of money by effectively making real replacements for them that do embrace free speech and are not afraid of barbarous mad people or the perpetually outraged?
That might be the only response we can really have.
I'd say it's the only one we really need. It's basic. It's almost naturalism. It's almost social media Darwinism. Only the fittest survive.
Yeah, it's all good and well on a large scale, but it's a small scale that has people worried. I think it's the what happens to my channel now. You know, what you're saying is absolutely correct. You know, I think it's, you know, it makes sense, but it doesn't help the poor. It doesn't help AIS right now, does it?
I'll put it this way: if PewDiePie came out tomorrow and he made a video critical of Islam, it would never get taken down. His channel would never be touched. It would never be touched because PewDiePie represents a certain amount of monetary gain for the company in and of itself. So Bearing is absolutely on point. The real threat to this is people in smaller channels.
There is, however, a food chain. You know, if they start taking down channels, I mean, the fact that they started out with AIU, who has 50,000 subscribers, over 50,000 subscribers, that is really a brain fuck to me, because I thought if they're going to start taking down channels, I thought they would start up with smaller ones. You know, like Introverted Smiles, the ex-Muslim with about 10,000, 11,000 subscribers, then maybe work their way up to me, maybe even start smaller with Focus Breaker Beeb, and then go up that food chain to 10,000, 20,000 subscriber channels, 30, 40,
they're
50.
Not threats.
They didn't. They started with 50,000.
That's because they're going after the threat to the narrative.
So they're just randomly, like rabid dogs, they just attack everything that moves.
No, they go for the thing that with the most amount of meat on it. They go for the thing that's already bleeding and the thing that clearly has the most meat to be eaten from it. The thing is that larger channels are the ones that have the influence. It's not the words that they're worried about. The company, this is not the crazy people reporting. The company is worried about the message and how far it can get out, and how if that could be construed as being hate speech, which as we know is thought crime, which as we know is capital crime now, if that could be construed as reflective of what the company is allowing, well then clearly by the delicate sensibilities of those people so insulated from the real world, that's something that just cannot be tolerated. So of course they're going for the larger channels first. The smaller ones will be attacked, once this sort of becomes mimetic amongst the censorious crowds which are gathering, the hordes at the gate, as it was. But as it stands right now, they're not trying to burn the villages; they want to sack the cities.
By the way, guys, I don't know if you noticed, but it seems atheism is unstoppable is actually in the chat right now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
did
know,
notice
I
that,
already
yeah.
sent him an invite an hour ago, or half an hour ago, so.
Oh, he
Good
still hasn't
evening.
come in. Layman, greetings.
Hey, Gaiman.
You faggot.
Been a while.
So, are we in full panic mode yet about YouTube?
I think it's safe to say that we should all probably be concerned. Because-
We Germans are used to watching the world burn.
Yeah. I would like to make a point real quick. We should talk about exclusivity and essentiality of services right now, because Facebook, they can do whatever the fuck they want. People just can't leave Facebook because it's so embedded into the internet and everyday life. But YouTube provides a non-essential service, and it's non-exclusive. At any given time, you can just switch to Dailymotion or Vimeo or whatever. So I think that YouTube, while it has those TOS,
how in that
give me a
sense
second,
is
just a
Facebook?
second.
Yeah.
As long as those alternatives are there, and YouTube is a non-essential service, I think they are going to be very careful with abusing their new terms of service, honestly.
No, I disagree there. The thing is yes, you can move your services or your videos to different services, but the thing is with that is if you do that, you're pretty much shutting yourself off of a bigger market, because YouTube is a household name.
Yes,
when
exactly.
you YouTube something, when you do this, same thing with Google.
It
So
also-
I don't think it's a good idea.
It may be the case that these other services exist because you have Dailymotion and Vimeo and even what's the other one, LiveLeak. The problem is, as Ben is saying, is that YouTube is easily the biggest of all these services by a long shot. They essentially have cornered this market, and if you use any of these other sites, nobody's going to see your stuff.
Well, at least not yet. But I mean, I think another component that's not really being remarked upon is exactly the kinds of people who are taking these steps and measures, right? So when you consider who it is that really runs social media, and by and large the more popular internet that people know, these are Silicon Valley and Bay Area millennials. These are people from places such as Cambridge, Massachusetts, and other such hive minds of social justice regressivism, that they would probably see a sacrifice in market share and actual net income, at least for their own cause, as a justifiable sacrifice in the name of advancing the causes that they want to see advanced. And part of that these days seems to be defending Islamism from any and all who might want to criticize it.
So we have a Sargon of Akkad in the live chat.
Who the hell is this guy? I've never heard of him.
Fuck off, back to Babylon, you fucking cuck.
Some kind of history back, I'm sure.
Get on my servers, fucking cuck, you layman. How are you guys all doing? So, I'm a bit new for this. What happened to atheism is unstoppable?
His channel got taken down after a Muslim apparently reported it for hate speech.
Wow.
Define taken down as in fucking.
He got a couple though, didn't he? To be precise, didn't he get a couple of strikes?
Yeah, he had previous strikes for copyright violations and DMCA's and stuff. I think he had 2 strikes or something.
Right, so it wasn't just that someone reported him once and then the whole thing went down.
No, he had a strike for copyright, and I think he got 2 strikes on 2 videos that were about Islam from 2 Muslims.
The channel gets auto-deleted at that point. He still can restore it, so...
Yeah, okay, it sounds worse than it actually is then, because the chances are he'll get his channel back, I think. I mean, he's lost his channel before.
Yes.
Did he get this? Did he get his channel back though, or did he restart? I thought he restarted.
He had the channel.
Oh,
He had
right.
30,000 subscribers, I think, when he lost it, and I found him when he was on the new channel.
He has
subscribers.
he has several alternate channels as well.
Mm.
But the question is, did he come back bigger than when he was struck down?
Yeah, because I started liking his videos.
Well, there we go. That's, yeah. I mean,
I tell you what, a lot of people have got a lot of problems with Devin Tracy, and Devin Tracy has a lot of problems, but he's not a racist, and he's not spamming hate speech, and he's not wrong when he says these are the statistics, they need to be addressed. He's just very frank.
That's part of his charm, I reckon.
That's why I like him. That's why I like him. That's why I want his videos.
And that's why people hate him as well. Okay.
It's also why people hate him.
Well, that's the nature of being frank and honest on the internet these days, isn't it?
Well, he's deliberately confrontational with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, but there's nothing wrong with that. So, there's nothing wrong with being confrontational, especially if you're in the right. So,
don't fucking encourage him. He's in the chat. Fucking hell, don't.
Yeah. He's okay. Well, I'll just call him a total baser then. That'll put place. But no, seriously though, I tend to watch quite a lot of his videos because I do actually enjoy them.
Yeah, so do I.
And if he was a racist, I would notice. I would very, very obviously notice. But the thing is, there are a lot of people who think being very honest and plain and direct about, say, black crime or Muslim terrorism is hate speech, and it's not. It's something that is genuinely happening and needs to be addressed.
Hate facts.
Or saying the word, can't say nigger.
Yeah. It's kind of ironic in a way because when you deny the black on black crime, you're not really helping them. You're just going to make it worse. Yeah. So if I was a racist, I would be denying it too.
Having worked on that issue in the past myself, the thing too is that when it comes to black on black crime, the people I've found who are most eager to actually discuss it and discuss ways of remediating it are people who are living in the situations themselves.
Yeah,
those who want to talk about the rest of it, those are people who, like we know, they're in college, and to them poverty, struggle, and violence is something that they see on TV or the internet or read about.
Well, I mean, you see plenty of viral videos going around Facebook from people who are black saying, we're the ones shooting each other. The police are shooting a tiny fraction of black people, and in comparison...
No, you're getting it all wrong. It's white privilege.
Kill other black people, and it's just like...
White privilege.
That's true.
Layman has it right. I mean, it's all because of white violence and something white male shooters and
also imperialism. Definitely imperialism.
Well, yes. I know the fact that I got to go to high school without having it shot up or bombed is explicitly why Southeast DC is in the condition that it's in. I mean, I'm benefiting from that gentrification directly.
Does anyone know, regarding the new terms of service, if you have to disclose your personal information if you're getting striked for hate speech or something like that?
I don't think so. That would be insane.
Oh, if you appeal it,
wait, wasn't that what it was before though? Wasn't that the case?
No. You have to give your personal information, your name and address with a copyright strike, but you don't.
Yes.
If you have to give it with a harassment claim, that would be fucking insane.
Yeah, that would be the
if you're contesting a copyright strike,
well, let's not give them any ideas, fellas.
I still do think it's really, really suspect. We were talking about this before the stream started, though. So right after the whole gathering with the UN, Anita Sarkeesian, Randy Harper, a bunch of the other ideologues all ended up going to Google Ideas, and Google owns YouTube. So I have to wonder if maybe this rampant social justice this effect is basically what has been the effect that's caused this terms of service change.
Absolutely. You look at, I mean, anytime you see any sort of industry article about, some kind of emerging tech sector, how this company or that company is innovating, they're always highlighting how they have young, fresh minds fresh out of college, right?
Yeah.
It's always the same thing, and this is what I was saying before, is that, like, right now the tech sector, it seems, is largely, like, we hear feminists complain about how it's male-dominated. The real problem is that it's dominated by people who are largely coming out of places like, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and San Francisco, or alternately perhaps Portland, fucking Oregon.
I actually believe Benny's line, what Benny was suggesting before we went live, which is that this might be the changes that were sanctioned by the European Commission. The harassment.
See, the thing about that is that YouTube can block videos by country, so and further YouTube's an American company, so I don't know if they would have to necessarily change the whole site to abide by those.
Absolutely. Also, we've seen that if the UN wants something done, it more often than not will task national institutions with that. For instance, the whole German institution of keeping Twitter and Facebook free of hate speech.
I love it when Germans try and keep things pure.
Yeah, it's fucking hilarious.
No, here's a fun little question though. So this is all kind of new territory that everyone's, this is the purpose of the stream. It's new shit. Here's a question: how long though until these Islamist videos saying that it is okay to kill apostates, it is okay to throw gays off of rooftops, etc., are themselves flagged for the legitimate hate speech that they are actually promoting?
Flagged soon, removed never.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is I think really that this is a tough question for me because I don't want anyone's stuff to get taken down. I don't believe in this stupid hate speech policy or this new cyberbullying thing. But I think it would be an interesting experiment for people from our community to go and report people like Black Hitler and like
no. I wouldn't suggest that.
And see what happens.
And no. We know what will happen. We know we've seen it on Twitter.
Nothing will happen. Yeah.
Nothing will happen, and then we'll just have more evidence to affirm what we already know to be true. Is that we are actually operating in systems that are controlled by people who have no interest in free discourse, critical inquiry, or free speech.
Right. I mean, if you're going to have these policies, really the point that I'm trying to make is that it should be about equitable enforcement of these policies. If you're going to have the policy, apply it to everyone and not just to us.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I get the feeling that we're all very much on the same page on these issues, which is nice. Because I'm very rarely on the same page as a lot of people, to be honest.
Fuck off, Sargon. I disagree.
Yeah, exactly. Disagree with me just for the point of it, all right?
Also, we should really point out at this point that the rapier is probably the best sword ever made.
Oh, just cuck yourself. God damn it.
I'm just going to be over here.
Look, there's a reason to there's 2 world wars, Lehman, all right?
I'm so disappointed in myself. I'm so disappointed in myself because I swore if I ever got into a live stream with Sargon, as soon as he came on, I would say, "Ahura, Sargon!"
A coffee, y'all.
I'm going to make that.
I got it in. I'm happy.
There you go.
No.
Now go get the tattoo.
Oh, fuck.
Oh yeah, no, a Sargon head with a speech bubble saying Uhuru. That's a great tattoo. That'll be relevant for 6 months.
On a more serious note, do we have a sort of contingency plan?
I don't know.
Daily Motion?
Good question.
Yeah, I do have a Dailymotion account. The site is pretty good, actually.
No, I think it'd be better if, like I said earlier, I don't think we were live then, but if what we do is we form some sort of union, and if one of the people's channels in the union goes down, everyone basically makes a shout out to that channel that's gone down, and so on to push it back up.
I'm relatively certain on different levels T and I are triggered by the word union, but
that's the only word I can really describe for it.
But
I've got a better word.
Not the road.
We need a movement. We need an identifiable movement, like feminism.
Wow, so you're saying we need identity politics, Sargon? Oh my god.
No, we need to be a group that people can point to.
Well, let's just call it feminism. That way no one can ever
let's call it Feminism Plus. Let's fucking call it Feminism Plus.
No, but here's something on the notion of a migration, if such ever has to be the case. Now, when it came to the questions of migrating from Twitter, where are we going to go from Twitter when this shit gets worse? No one had anything like that established, and plenty of people tried to put them together, but they just never really took off.
Yeah.
Within respect to YouTube, at least in respect to like what it is that we do, and the audiences that we all respectively have at their various sizes are very fucking loyal, even when they disagree. A migration to a different place, if things get too bad here, could potentially function as those avenues already exist. They're not. We don't need people to make them.
Yeah,
we can just go there.
It could, yeah.
It's kind of like when MySpace began going to shit just because they didn't know what they were doing, and hey, now we're going to make it all about music and change everything 2 days after it went. Yeah, but what happened with the move to Facebook? The reason the move to Facebook from MySpace made so much sense, and this is something a lot of people forget, was that in the early days of Facebook, you could only have it if you were at a university with a university email account. Then when MySpace began turning to shit and it became clear that it was going down, Facebook opened itself up to public accounts for anyone, and that's when the flood happened. It was already the avenue. The infrastructure for the new platform was already there. The company managing it just recognized there was a market to tap into, and when they did, it exploded. If YouTube starts turning to shit because of censorship to protect delicate emotional reactions to things, and there are other avenues like Dailymotion or LiveLeak, which are willing to accept free speech, and the free speech movement, which, let's face it, this stream and all of the streams of all of those who we respect and may not agree with, but still stand next to in terms of their right to speak their minds, are willing to migrate over to that. The audience will come as well, and those institutions, those outlets, they will be fucking pleased as punch to have us.
Yeah,
I'm not so sure.
We should not overstate the sizes of our audiences compared to the total size of YouTube. I mean, even if you put the entire renter-sphere together, we are maybe pecking
it's not YouTube that we'd be concerned about, though. YouTube isn't going to miss us if we all disappear tomorrow.
Absolutely.
But if we go somewhere else, a sudden influx of, say, I don't know, I mean, like what? If say you got like the Amazing Atheist, Thunderfoot, me, Armored Skeptic, a bunch of other like sizable YouTubers. I mean, we could be looking at a combined total of maybe 500,000 people. A sudden influx into their site.
What happens when someone like Grade A Under A, who's I think 2.5 million subscribers right now, who himself, he doesn't really go into shitlord territory or anything like that, but he says some shit that is critical as fuck and could, under these new rules, be flagged as hate speech. If he suddenly picked up and said, you know what, fuck this place, I'm going over there, I'm taking my ball and going to my new home, his subscribers would follow.
Right. I mean, and by the same token, even people like Markiplier and PewDiePie have come out and said these new terms of service are ridiculous. You know, when these golden boys of YouTube are coming out and saying this, you know, they should. Did
PewDiePie say something against them? I haven't seen that. That's interesting.
I actually haven't seen his video directly, but I have heard about it, and Markiplier also made a video as well about it.
Okay, 3 words: filthy fucking Frank.
Yeah.
Filthy Frank.
Never underestimate him.
Yeah, who's he going after now? He's going after animal rights activists, and if there's one people we know like to bitch online, it's animal rights activists.
Oh God.
Yes.
Yeah, so what happens? The latest Steve Sakar as well. If anything's fucking hate speech, it should be that fucking vegan cunt Steve Sakar.
He's legit one
it, we are going to be we are going to be fighting on the same side as these people.
I just wanted to tell the chat, considering that I made a lot of you moderators already, all these Muslim cunts who've been following around, you know, me, Amasi, and others, they started turning up in the chat. So if one of you manages to ban one of these, you'll get an invite to this stream.
Just something, guys. Stream chat. Could you please press 1 for a Islamic Holocaust? Just get rid of Islam. Press 1 for Islamic Holocaust.
Oh God,
well, Kraut, I guess that's it was a good run you had here. I see you're over 20.
Yeah.
Take a screenshot, put it up, print it out, put it up on your wall, and remember the good old days when you could say what you wanted.
I will. I definitely will.
Well, luckily he's on his second channel, so. Oh my God, the chat. Oh fuck.
Oh Jesus.
Can one be considered hate speech, you reckon?
Oh, it will be. It will be.
So much for your channel, crowd.
You know, this is going to be the new game when people do migrate. We're going to start new YouTube accounts, gain quick followings, and then just like basically like sniping each other on Rust and raiding each other's bases. It's like, oh, you were offline and I left a comment using the word nigger and sand nigger in the same comment. So, haha, fuck your channel, bye.
Layman, you remember I sent you the invite once and you posted it on 4chan and some guy turned up showing a clip of a woman kicking a naked man in the balls repeatedly. My channel wasn't taken down then. I'm pretty sure it won't be taken down now.
Speaking of taking down channels, my other channel, Dr. Layman, once I left my live stream running for about 30 minutes while I was gone, I came back after the stream, and I had 18 copyright strikes on the fucking stream. The chat is still going, for God's sake!
Yeah, I guess we'll have to do that Holocaust now.
Just to reiterate the point, I really do think this is important. The reason they're beating us is because they have a label. That's why they're beating us.
Absolutely. Yeah. They have recognition.
How do you mean that?
They have a global...
What's our label, Chief? What are you suggesting?
It's branding.
No, they don't have the numbers. They don't have popular will. What they have is a manifesto they can point to effectively and say, look, this is what feminism's for. We're feminists. You have to do things for us now. They act entitled. Well, how can we do that? How could we possibly try and affect something? What you can say, oh, Dr. Lehman wants to change something. No, they don't care. They don't know you. You represent, like, you're one person with, like, I don't know, even if it's just me, Sargon wants something. Well, that's just one person. You know, it doesn't mean anything. It's not a movement in any way.
There needs to be a sort of type of cohesive idea, something that's easily embraced.
Yes,
as it stands right now, I mean, the only ones we really do have are those that have been labeled on us. Aside from bigot and racist and all that, it's anti-feminist, anti-Muslim, anti-theist. It's negative. Yeah, these are negative things, which for the average pleb, for the average normie who comes across an argument of this sort, it's this ism, which stands for equality, versus this anti thing, which is just.
I just want to point out as well. Nobody is an anti-feminist. That isn't a label. That's a description.
Absolutely.
Nobody identifies as an anti-feminist. You get, say, I don't know, conservative Christians who are anti-feminist. You get liberal skeptics who are anti-feminist. I suspect that we are probably the liberal skeptics. We're not.
More likely.
We're not the conservative Christians, and yet we're still in the same camp against feminism, and that's the problem. We can't organize. We can't put pressure on anyone because we are not anyone in their minds. What we need is a term that would adequately describe us.
But the problem is
what do you think of Sargon? You've obviously thought about this.
I've thought about it a lot. I've actually got a few ideas, but I don't want to go into anything yet because I'm still thinking through.
I think the problem is not that we are not something in their eyes. We aren't something. Every one of us is so vastly different, which is inherent in the things we do. You know, everyone of us comes from different fields, and it has different ideas. So I think
we do share certain values, don't we?
I don't know.
Yeah, we do.
Free speech, for example.
Let's remember the last time. Yeah, well, we remember. I mean, the last time I encountered this with this group, especially with you, Sargon. You know, that rather passionate and heated argument between you and Random Account about the label of MRM versus humanism. Now, humanism makes perfect sense for it. Unfortunately, that's already been sort of scooped by those who wanted to claim it for their own.
It's going to have to be something new. It's going to have to be something that isn't in the popular imagination, which means, and this is the great part about doing this, we get to define it.
What about the liberal movement, taking back the term liberal?
Conservatives are never going to
I don't think that's going to be able
It's
to be
too
done.
spoiled in America.
Yeah, and conservatives themselves would never go for it.
No,
The word itself is totally polluted at this point, and
it's too political.
National socialism.
Right.
I fucking love your crowd.
Well, I mean, I think hearkening on to Enlightenment values would be important with it. It's hard to attach an ism to the word enlightenment.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to spoil something, but I've been writing something, and I think it's something that a lot of people will be able to put their names to.
You're writing?
Yes, I've written this. I do think it's something that a lot of people can put their names to. And I think it's an idea whose time is coming. I'm not sure it's quite there yet, but it's something that when it comes, I think we can make a big deal and a lot of noise and probably get quite a lot of attention over. The whole petition thing, it was done in anger, but it was also, there's a point to it beyond that. It's something we can point to. It's a number. You know,
Sounds like the birth of the Illuminati.
No, it's the birth of a grassroots movement to claim back freedom, our rights to free expression. Man. That's
well,
what
I mean, you know, we have far too many Noam Chomskys and not enough Thomas Paines these days.
Yes. Listen, that is a very good way of putting. Man, you've got away with words, you son of a bitch. We'll talk at some point because I want you to have a once over what I've written actually, but before I'm ready to put it live. But and the thing is, I get a lot of people saying, "What can we do with this petition?" It's like, well, you can do anything you want with it. You know, you can email any newspaper and say, "Hey, look, 78,000 or 79,000 people want social justice addressed. Why aren't you reporting this?" You know.
And I think, well, I mean, I'd say in this respect too, a central thrust also needs to be: don't be afraid to disagree with people you call friend.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I mean, like, that's, I mean, for fuck's sake, I mean, T and I here, my ex-unionist, quasi-socialist, I'm sure he and I would go toe-to-toe, head-to-head, all fucking day, have a grand old time doing it, and then still walk away friendly. And that's so fucking lacking in our modern context. Not just because of
my
radical
debate with Thunderfoot. After the debate, I sat there and had a chat with him. Like, Christ, that was a bit intense. You know,
well, that was the
we
thing.
got away as friends.
Well, and listening to that and then watching the chat too, and it was funny because this hypercharged sense of self-righteous identity and assuredness of your position has gotten to a point where it was constantly so-and-so one, so-and-so one. Oh, he fucking wrecked him. Oh, fuck.
What about the word pluralist?
It's not necessarily. I mean, what's it going to instantly conjure up in people's minds?
It's not going to conjure up anything because it's a philosophical term coined by Popper, which means multitude of opinion in a democratic society.
But putting my political
I think that would be a way of
on,
describing.
Yeah, that belongs in the
label.
The label requires a market appeal. The label requires a draw, and this is like it's the sad fact that the only way you get people's attention is with something that's bright and shiny and appealing. Not depth, not in depth and deep and intellectual, because sadly, that's what you draw them into, and then you give them that. You need presentation at the beginning. Feminism has we stand for equality. Islamism has this, if you don't agree, we'll fucking kill you.
In fact, hang on. That's actually a great point. Saying we stand for pluralism is a very interesting tagline.
Yeah,
it's a very interesting tagline. Actually,
it belongs in the body of the. It belongs in the body, not in the
elevator pitch. It's like feminism is equality. You know, that's the pitch that you put to people. Whatever we're doing is pluralism. You know, we want a diversity of ideas. You know, that's what that will mean. And people.
Do enough people know what fucking pluralism is, though? I mean, everyone knows what equality is.
Yeah, but people know what plural means. And so they'll have to ask another question.
And then it also allows us to define that narrative, because we're also, here's the funny thing, as opposed as we are to Islamism, I want those bad ideas to be heard as many by as many people as possible, because they're insane. They are absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah, I don't want them festering somewhere in fucking mosques unexamined.
The idea that isn't heard is the idea that's not challenged.
Yes, that's exactly my opinion on it. And that's the thing. I think there are literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people of like mind on this issue, even if they disagree on politics, points of policy, anything else, just anything else. But on these issues, the fundamental sort of there are probably about 4 or 5 fundamental principles that I think we would all agree on, if just on the face of them, without any further explanation.
They're human principles. Before this stream, I was in a stream speaking with Habib about he wants to see a growth of some kind of reform movement within Islam, and the point we kept coming back to was it comes down to understanding and being proud of one's own actual culture, absent some authoritarianism. But more than that, it's about that. At the core of every rational person who's not been radicalized and hypercharged into some hateful way of thinking, at the core of every person are desires for peace, security, family, love, stability, some prosperity, and freedom. And part of that freedom is the freedom to express your opinion, however it may be, and have people respond to it in kind, because none of you were told you can't.
Yeah, that's the only way to be someone's equal, is to be able to speak your mind and have them speak theirs. Otherwise, you're looking at a hierarchical system of privilege.
And that's one of the things that makes YouTube so vastly important, because it is a global stage where anybody's ideas can be voiced, anybody's ideas can be heard or challenged. You can engage with the people that you speak with.
Precisely.
And that's why this censorship it's horrifying. I mean, it's kind of a more complicated situation with AIU, but to say that this isn't possibly a sign of things to come, I mean, I think that would be naive.
And that's the main contention I have in regards to the any idea of moving to another platform is mainly, in terms of, bringing our audience. I don't think that would be hard at all. But the only issue is once our audience comes, the continued acquisition of mainstream audience, to expansion of getting your voice out there to other people who haven't may have heard of you.
Well, here's a question.
I think we have the reach.
Yeah, well,
we have much more in the way of influence than I think we give ourselves credit for.
But you do need some sort of mainstream medium to be able to reach them.
But question being, though,
Well,
on that same note, wait a second, on that same note, though, if, like, this is a fresh, fertile ground, right? Let's say it's not quite as big as YouTube, but it does have plenty of people already looking at it. And all of a sudden there's an influx of new speakers and ideas there who are maybe opening up people's minds who maybe haven't been as mired in those arguments yet.
And more importantly, have honed their craft.
Yeah, that's
the point. We can gather audiences. We all have a decent sized audience. I mean, even a few thousand people, that's still not a bad audience, really, when you think about it.
I mean, yeah, and the thing too is that, I mean, I've noticed, you know, I might have one of the smallest audiences here. What I've noticed is that even despite good swaths of them fundamentally disagreeing with me on a majority of specific issues, they're still fiercely loyal to the expression of the perspectives that they hear and want to disagree with. And those are the kinds of people who go out and take the materials that people like ourselves put out and show it to their friends and say, this is the best fucking bullshit commie liberal argument I've heard. This is like the most persuasive fucking anti-feminist shit. Or even if they disagree and they see someone who's expressing regressive, you know, views, be like, hey, listen, just listen to this thing, and then tell me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, and I'm not in any way trying to brag when I say this, but I had no idea how far my fame had spread, and I would encounter situations where people were like, do you know Sargon, or something like that, and I'm just like, how the fuck do you know who I am? I mean, like, for example,
you really sound like this guy that I know, by the way. I don't know if you heard of him.
No, seriously, listen, right. My wife likes reading the Daily Mail because she likes trolling people in the comments. And she posted a comment that, you know, she thinks in a very similar way to me, which is probably why I like her. And she had posted something, and someone underneath had written, Sargon? And it's like, Jesus Christ. You know, and that's just one example. And then I've had two friends now who friends of theirs have been sharing my videos with them, and they're like, you know this guy, right? You met him like 3 years ago at a party or something, and they're like, what? And I'm like, well, fuck me, how the fuck is, you know, this is getting around, you know?
That's wild. I only have
It's incredible. That's the point. If you do something that resonates with people, it will be spread. It will affect people. It's not the mainstream media, it's grassroots, and it's word of mouth.
If I can just plug an idea at this point, I think it would be important if we could establish a sort of centralized database for the future. If small channels, for instance, are taken down because of hate speech or something like that, most people won't actually notice. But if they have a centralized platform where they can share their story of it being suspended or something like that, and if you can, you know, share that around and actually have a sort of data pile on what YouTube is actually doing with the new terms of services, that might be really relevant to what we're trying to do.
Oh, what was that? Like deep freeze.
Essentially.
Possibly. I'm not sure how productive it'll actually be in the long run to police YouTube, though. I mean, it does sound like a good idea, but I don't know how much it's really going to accomplish.
It's not going to accomplish a goddamn thing.
Yeah, that's my concern. I think it'd just be pissing into the wind for me. I don't think it's going to do anything.
Well, it's the attempt to apply a model from a different fight to what is a different fight.
Yeah.
I mean, deep freeze makes sense for Gamergate because Gamergate's against corrupt journalism. This is a broader fight. This is a broader issue of which Gamergaters are a faction within, but you know.
Yes, that's the point. There are many of these factions, and we need a single uniting label to bring them all under the same banner, so that when one person from one end of it, who may never have spoken to another person on the other end of it, says something and hashtags it, then whoever's going through the hashtag say, holy shit, that bothers me. You know, if we're talking, essentially, I think what we're talking are the Enlightenment values. Is there anyone in disagreement with what if I were to say that, then people generally have a good idea of what I'm talking about, and is there anyone in opposition to that?
I think you will be very hard pressed to find anyone here opposing Enlightenment values.
Exactly.
I just want to get us back to the good old days when guys like T and myself could just argue about the fact that a public healthcare system would be a net benefit rather than having to set that aside and okay, we'll get to that later. No, you don't get to tell me I've triggered you.
Oh, by the way, I just gotta trigger T here, okay? Roads.
Roads, motherfucker, roads.
Dude, if we didn't have a government, we would literally have no roads. We would be walking on broken glass and shit.
So while we're having,
Actually, you know, I've heard if you mix that with a bit of charcoal, you can actually come up with some pretty good roads.
you know,
But
while I
you
wanted to,
have to burn everything down around it, and then you have roads.
If we didn't have roads and needed Sarkeesian, then wouldn't have gotten to Google and
Oh, and checkmate liberals.
I'm reading through old books
Hang
right
on,
now.
guys, hang on. I noticed that Devon in the chat posted, obviously as a joke, Heil Hitchens, and I think that's a very interesting thing. Obviously, we can't call ourselves like the Hitchenites or something. But
Well, he would hate that too.
Of course, he would hate that. That's why. That's one of the many reasons we couldn't do that. But if we could think of something that might conjure up the spectre of him in people's minds, that would be a good thing.
I've got an idea. This is something because I've been trying. This is one of those things. Like when I do like my sit and rant videos, they usually take 10 takes or more. And well, the ideas get muddled. I get off on tangents. I forget where I'm going, and then I need to start over because I just hate what I'm doing. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, same.
But one thing I was trying to tap into, and this was in regards to expressing my own atheism, is that I always liked his concept of the luminous. The way he presented that was basically saying that concepts and experiences such as observing beauty and experiencing love and all of these things which the faithful typically like to attribute to the glory of God, atheists are able to hold on to as just personal experiences that are luminous and enlightening to them and impactful to them, absent an external meaning. And the concept of the luminous, I mean, I don't know, the luminists, well, Illuminati confirmed, I doubt it. But
no, it's a bit abstract.
That direction that he was prying in, because I liked it, because it basically said that you don't need an orthodox or fundamentalist set of values of any kind. You can be as free a thinker as possible and experience all of the same goodness of life and do all of the same good deeds as a human without that external factor pushing in. You don't need to be for equality because that's what feminism is. You don't need feminism to stand for equality. You don't need religious values to stand for family values.
Yeah, I mean, I liked this. Just I think Aristotle really summed this up. Is the mark of an educated mind is to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it, and that's practically the basis of all fiction. You know, the reason that you don't see, you don't think Game of Thrones is, a historical text, is because you set aside a portion of your mind to enjoy it without believing it. And I think that we need to encourage people to think about that a bit more, to be honest.
Maybe there is no such thing as a label that could unite us because the nature of our...
I think there is.
Are you sure about that?
I think that pluralism sounds best, to be honest. But my main
pluralism
is that
pluralism is a concept and not an ideology, let alone a state of mind.
Or maybe the
concept of society and state.
Yeah, it would be a descriptor.
Yeah, but also if you have to consider the nature of a movement and understand it for what it is ahead of time, because the central failing with Gamergate, I found, largely in certain respects, was the same central failing as Occupy. Not just attempts at co-option and this and that, but also the notion that it would last forever. It's a defined movement with a defined goal. It's a thing that needs to understand that eventually it will become irrelevant and die. That's the problem feminism hasn't done, which is why it's increasingly militant with every new publication, is because it doesn't want to let it die because it knows that it no longer actually stands for equality, but it needs to hammer that idea in just to keep itself as an idea relevant.
Yeah, but I would like to object to one part there, however. What you say presupposes that it was even justified to begin with. And I can't really agree with that, if I'm going to be honest.
But without even wading into that specific argument, which I'm on the fence about it. But the thing is, though, to understand that it doesn't necessarily need to be a lasting philosophy. I mean, the fact is that fewer and fewer people, it seems, even invoke the concept of Enlightenment values. Yet we still know what they are. That's the lasting impact of the Enlightenment movement.
What we need is a shorthand way of invoking these values. That's what it is.
Just out of interest, what did the American revolutionaries call themselves?
Sons of Liberty.
Tea Partiers.
Tea parties. So, there's
Yeah,
nothing
that's a
there.
fucking fantastic
I
idea.
know-
I love those tea parties.
I wanna see George Jefferson's birth certificate. I don't believe.
Hang on,
Because-
Yeah, well, this
No,
is
no,
the
no.
thing. I
Maybe,
mean, what did
maybe
we have?
that
We
is-
had
maybe
we
that
had-
historical time phrase is something where you can, because these people, they used to call themselves these flowery names, and we had the failed revolution in 1848, and these people called themselves Junges Deutschland, young Germany. So you can, I guess, look into the past and look at these movements and try to find a catchy phrase as a label as well.
Yeah, I was saying the
That's
same
nice.
thing. Like looking
But,
back,
I mean-
like thinking of in the last decade, like which particular movements have come up and in the last few decades or so and just exploded. First things that come to my mind are like progressivism,
Tea Party.
Tea Party, yeah, alt right, and
They
Neoconservative.
have a name and they know what they want.
The thing is
We
with
know
that
what
though
we
is
want, but we
the
don't have a name. That's
Well,
the
actually,
problem.
Yeah,
no. Specifically,
the label itself, though,
intersectional
isn't that
feminism was one as
descriptive?
well.
I
Well,
mean,
here's the
what
thing.
exactly
Also,
is the alt-right? It's alternative right, but what exactly is it? That's my main problem.
yeah,
They're-
but
they're actually
consider this.
struggling with that, to be honest.
Consider this though. Adding a qualifier does seem to work as well, because intersectional feminism is a relatively recent thing. It's only come along recently, but it defines a completely different thing than what, say, Christina Hoff Sommers' feminism, which she stands by and calls it feminism. Yes.
She I believe she calls it she calls herself an equity feminist or something like that.
Well, what about this? Something like critical humanism.
No, it's going to have the word new in.
I'm glad you brought this point up, Wizard, because I've been talking to Naked Ape a lot lately, and he's been talking a lot about pragmatism. So what about something like pragmatic skepticism or something like that?
I really think if we include the word new, that will hark back to the late
No,
80s.
I have a revolutionary idea, guys. Okay, listen to this. Just prepare to have your minds blown.
By the Swede.
How about we don't have an ism at all?
No, that's a really bad
But
idea.
see,
The thing is-
Sandre, before you came in here, we were discussing precisely why we need some kind of name for ourselves, like some kind of identifier.
Keep in mind also, and I haven't seen this brought up yet, but if we don't assign ourselves a name, they will assign the name for us.
We
Yes,
need
we
to-
have.
Yeah.
No, I mean this is seeking a banner for an assembled coalition to effectively march beneath.
Yes.
One unifying banner that other banners show beneath, and that we're all on the same side. And you know what? We may go to war with each other later on, but we're looking forward to it because we're grown-ass adults. And in the meantime, this is what we're doing.
Chris in the chat suggested new liberals. Wouldn't that just be a
Neoliberalism.
copy of something else? Because
I think
liberalism is
the
new.
thing,
It's not
the thing
really.
with the term liberal is that it's left-right politics. We want to avoid that completely.
So has everyone concluded pretty much that cultural libertarian is not going to work?
It's a good
Too
descriptor,
long-
but
too
it's not a
long.
banner.
Personally, personally, as I do have a problem with the whole identity politic thing, I guess that skepticism would work still. However, since it's not really, skepticism isn't really so much some. It's really more of a descriptor of what you actually do.
You know, I actually think that's a great idea. I do think the word new should be involved. For a couple of reasons. One, it shows that we're not, in the minds of people who have never heard of us, it will demonstrate that this is not an old. It is an old idea, but this is not an old movement. This is something that has come about due to current forces. But also, new would, if we're using it in sort of new atheists or new skeptics or something like that, then that would also hark back to Hitchens and Dawkins, the people who go out and challenge bad ideas.
There's an
We're not
uphill
skeptics.
battle. If
Bad
you're going to use the term skepticism, there's an uphill battle that you're going to have to fight. Prior to my being very involved in Twitter and doing the YouTube thing, I was very embroiled in the science communication community on Facebook. And that's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who all fall under this banner of skepticism. And they exchange their ideas, they regurgitate each other's links, etc., etc., etc. It is infested with social justice warriors.
That's why.
It's
That's
not
why
on
we.
Twitter.
That's why we have the qualifier new.
And
Right,
also, well,
and
the defining
the uphill
thesis
battle,
is
though.
opposing that.
The uphill
Also,
battle,
skepticism,
though,
though. Go ahead, Jeff. Sorry.
the uphill battle, though, is to have enough loud voices to put forth enough rational arguments that skeptics can't really truly challenge the basis of these ideas.
I
think we have
You also need that fuss as well, because these people are like parasites, and they will latch onto this.
Well, hang on. Right, the thing is, whatever it is I've been writing, I haven't really put a name to it or anything yet, but I've obviously crafted it deliberately so it cannot be co-opted by SJWs.
Okay.
I mean, obviously, that's my number.
Never say never.
But
That is a difficult task, Sargon.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is that
just to address that, it's actually not a difficult task. It's actually a really easy task if you know what you're looking for. Most organizations, most movements are not prepared to deal with identity politics. They're not expecting it, they don't see it coming, and so they don't know how to resist it. If you know how to resist it, it's very easy to just sit there and lay out a few points that say these are non-negotiable and these preclude any kind of SJW nonsense. It's actually really easy to do.
I kind of like neo-skepticism.
One thing I think, though, that
I.
needs to, like, just stepping back from this, let's go and get it, is to really acknowledge what the natural course of this thing will be. Because even if identity politics is clearly outlined as haram, as a no-go area, as what we oppose, right? If that's the case, one thing that needs to be understood is that if the movement becomes an actual cohesive movement, it needs set goals that it needs to achieve. They need to be clearly defined, and then it needs to be understood that once a certain
No. You're looking
not
at
specific. No. Wait. Let me finish. Let me just finish this thought, though. All I'm saying here, is that they don't need to be specifically set down like metrics and the like. But what I'm saying is that an established understanding of what the effort is about and the message is, it needs to be understood that at a certain point, once, especially if a certain portion of that is achieved, factional divides will grow within it, and they will. It's the same thing that happened with Gamergate, with Occupy, with pretty much any movement you get. Once it goes long enough and gets big enough, factional divides happen, and you need to let it die.
Okay.
New classicists.
Hang on. Right, let's do
New rationalists.
No. Let's just address this point, right? What we are talking about here is not a movement with an end goal. It is designed to perpetuate forever, like feminism, like intersectional feminism. However, we will be designing to perpetuate the values that benefit everyone, rather than the values that benefit a few, because that's what we're fighting.
The problem with that is that while, for instance, feminism or Occupy and all of that have a common content, so to speak, which is, for instance, the inequality of society, we only have a common method, essentially. We don't have a common content when it comes down to it.
Well,
furthermore,
of course we do.
Whatever movement we create, there won't be a common method or any common, execution of trying to achieve it.
It's the principles involved. It's the thing that you will be arguing for that will be held in common. How you argue for it is irrelevant, really.
Well,
anyone can argue in their own way.
No, that being the case, I'm saying more like, in a long-term method, let's say like one of the central thrusts here, as we know now, is defending free speech and open debate. Now, if we're able to do that in the name of this movement, at a certain point, those with divergent views as to what is beneficial and best for everyone in society will then attempt to claim that school of thought as their own, right or wrong. That will happen. We just need to acknowledge that will happen and sort of understand that. And they will try, and to certain extents, they will succeed. Factions will evolve. They always do.
Okay, there's nothing wrong with factions evolving. In fact, I would expect in a pluralistic movement there to be many factions. But these factions would all have the same common goals in mind. And again, I'm going to quote Alinsky, but he's right when it comes to this. When you have a movement, you have to make it as broad as possible along the same lines. If you have a movement that's for one thing, say men's rights, you'll never, ever get very many people in it, because only so many people are going to be interested in that movement. However...
There's a shelf life.
No, it's not
a shelf life.
Listen, it's not there's a shelf life. There's just a certain number of people who are really concerned about that particular interest. However, if then, if it comes under the rubric of equal rights, which it does, then people who are also concerned about women's rights, not necessarily men's rights, but they're not going to oppose the concept because they're not, no, we want equal rights.
It has to be something that they can benefit from.
not necessarily benefit from. It's to see the principle that they want upheld. So if men see, I mean, for example, in the MR8, men commit suicide at a drastically higher rate than women. That is an equal rights issue. There is clearly something wrong with men. So, something's happening to them that needs to be addressed. Feminists going, no, that's but male prejudice, blah blah. That doesn't wash with most people. It doesn't wash. And so they can say, well, no, I'm not a feminist because I want equal rights, and I care about like when men are getting screwed as well as when women are getting screwed. It's the point that they're getting screwed that matters to me, not the gender of the person. And that's the point that we can emphasize. And that gets more people in than just saying I care about men or I care about women.
Absolutely. No, I mean,
so that is why we will need basically this Enlightenment movement for like I don't know, probably like I said, probably about 4 or 5 different specific principles that we want upheld. And when these principles are being violated, it doesn't matter how they're being violated. What matters is that they are being violated. And this is something that everyone can rally behind, even if they aren't personally being affected by it, because they care about the principle of the thing.
Yeah, sorry, Nicholas, but I am in STEM, and I'm in a scientific field that hasn't successfully been occupied by gender ideologues or SJWs because the very nature. Yeah, I did chemistry. It's very hard to co-opt that for natural reasons, but it's not just that. It's also just the mere fact that it's a field where the people are trained to be analytical. I mean, you will be hard pressed to find people more analytical than chemists. We dissect everything. I think that if we are to start this new movement, new skepticism, or whatever the hell you want to call it, I think that what we need to do is to take a look at real-world examples as to how this should be, not run, mind you, because I think that would be, I mean, it's like the scientific model. You can't run it. It has certain principles within it, and from that you get something that is functional. I think we need to take a look at the institutions of science, for instance, that hasn't been occupied, and take a look at them and realize why they haven't been so. And then we need to compare that to other fields that have been occupied, such as sociology, which the Oompa Loompa in here knows all about. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Anyway, Sargon, what I would like you to do, because I mean, you are without a doubt the most influential of all of us when it comes to this. Maybe it could be up to you to I don't know, make future videos about this, because I find this very interesting actually, and I would like to be a part of this. Maybe you can take a look at real-world examples of skeptical movements, but not just that, institutions of science, for instance, and just try and break it down and find out why these haven't been co-opted, and just compare that to other instances that are supposed to be reasonable, that are supposed to be based on logic, but have failed to resist this invasion.
We know why. We know that because the natural sciences don't. If you have a theory in natural sciences, and you have one instance in which would disprove the theory is worthless. Science is not a democracy. Science is a strict meritocracy.
Yes, when it comes to sociology, of course.
Yeah, I know that part already. What I'm talking about here isn't necessarily the actual field of itself. What I'm talking about is the institutions, okay? Because, the people who run these institutions, essentially, why is it that stereotypically mathematicians, physicists, and chemists are so hard to co-opt when it comes to this? Now, it has happened to some degree, don't get me wrong, it does happen, but not to the same degree as the other fields. I mean, of course, the actual science itself is partially an explanation, but I feel like it's also about a sort of attitude to your occupation, because why is it that sociologists, who are supposed to at least partially abide by the scientific model, why is it that they also, not just as sociologists, but as people, are so easy to co-opt, to indoctrinate into this?
Andre has a very
I'd
good
like
point. Some of my
Layman.
co-workers, can I just I have a
Yeah,
really
no,
quick
go
point.
ahead. I had something I wanted to give to you actually, but yeah.
Sandra has a really valid point. There is a good core left, but at the moment we are facing some really bad issues, mostly because it's rigor, essentially. It's academic rigor that goes into it. You get away with so much bullshit in most non-natural sciences, it's fucking ridiculous at this point. That's all I wanted to say.
Well, and this was something I wanted to offer, hoping you would maybe offer your own insights on it. Now, my grandfather, he died when I was young, and this was kind of interesting for me. My father studied as a physicist, and so with him, I was raised with that sense of rigor. Ask yourself routinely, are you right? You know, always make sure that you only believe in that which you can actually prove, or that which your belief has no negative impact if it's proven wrong. You know, he was raised, you know, he came up as a physicist. His father, though, my grandfather, was a social worker and then later a professor of social work and sociology at the University of Connecticut, University of Hartford. Now, when he died, he left a whole host of unfinished journal entries and academic works behind. And when my grandmother died, I inherited those as my inheritance, and I've slowly been going through them, trying to do what I can to polish them up, edit them, and provide them to the University of New Hampshire. At this point seems pointless. His focus of interest, one of them, was ideology. And when he was examining ideology, he did, from his writings, very much seemed to go at them from a very rational scientific perspective, examining how they function, how they evolve, what their function within societies is, and what they do for the individual. And one thing that he seemed to come to is that an ideology is itself a naturally occurring sort of motivator within social bodies to allow not just for like political and social cohesion, but for those bodies themselves to identify what is socially understood to be right and wrong, and to push public policy and governments in those directions. Now, in those, even those studies, if that was being studied in, let's say, like the late 50s or the 60s, or even the early 70s, if that was what was being taught and studied, it does kind of lend itself to logic to assume then that if that was the sort of the sociological viewpoint of the day, that those who came up on that understood that ideology is itself a weapon and a tool to make change, and the change that you want needs to be through the ideology and the movements that such inspires. And I would almost say then that it almost kind of mirrors religion in the sense of that social utility.
Also, I would add, to answer Sandre's question in regards to why the institutions of science aren't easily co-opted, I would say that it's mainly because science, you know, especially hard science, you know, like statistics, mathematics, and all that.
In other words, the only science.
Pretty much. It can't be, you know, changed or manipulated to pander to anyone. You can't go up to you know, a physician, or not a physician, but a chemist rather, and say, can you change this formula to you know, make me feel better about my gender identity or anything like that? No, it's right or wrong. This is the equation. This is the science behind whatever this particular scientific method is, and that is that.
Can I just?
And there's less reason to.
Right. The thing is, what you guys are talking about here really is minutia, right? This is something that will have to be dealt with, but what we need to be thinking about are the overarching principles that we will be trying to enforce. So let me just comment for a second. So what I'm saying is what we're talking about here is creating the framework that we want these things to be dealt within, and it's easy to create a framework that the feminists will instantly reject, and a sensible person will instantly accept. Very easy. You just have to be arguing for the right things.
And one thing I will say in regards to the principles matter, I'm plan on making a video about this later to go more in depth, but I think that anytime you inject equality in the framework of any principle, it becomes muddy beyond measure.
We need specific terminology.
Equality is a terrible...
What about individual altruism?
Yeah, we can. I mean, I think skeptics is a good word, and I think new is a bad word because it'll hark back in people's minds to other people who have been challenging bad ideas, also under the label of new. For example, the new atheists. I mean, I think that's a good label, but
the only objection I could see with that label, and this is a marginal one at best, is that there are decent portions of this otherwise rationally minded counterculture against this bullshit that we're facing, which they do themselves cling to some certain level of religious faith, and that the word skeptic itself
necessarily have to be anti-religion.
No, I'm not saying it is.
What it could more be is freedom of religion and freedom from religion. Because there are millions of religious people who don't want to push their beliefs on others.
I'm simply thinking from a branding perspective.
But no, you're absolutely right. The word skeptic could well turn off religious people.
It does have a connotation to it.
I like new individualist. That's kind of catchy.
It is kind of catchy.
A bit long.
Yeah, the only issue that I have with the New Skeptics movement label is that it doesn't really explain too much about the movement as a whole. I would have thought that it'd be better if we had a label, which it's a label and it means this. It's a lot more specific.
Hang on. Sorry, I know I keep jumping in to try and interrupt people, but okay. So new individualist is too long for Twitter. You can't hashtag it. Okay?
Neo invokes neoconservatism.
Yeah, not the word neo either. It's too yeah, exactly.
It's cliche.
Yeah, so it's got to be new, and it's got to be something else that's short that goes with it. Hang on. Shit. Who's the chap with the robot with the hat?
Oh, me.
Oh, Benny. Yeah. What was your point again? Sorry.
My point was that if we have a label which also describes the movement, people won't just look at it and then redefine it.
Yeah. Now the important thing is that we act as we say we think, because what we'll need, which is why I've written what I've written, is effectively a single statement of values that everyone can put their name to. We need literally a piece of paper, a website, something that we can literally say, if you want to know everything I want, you can read that, and we will all be on the same page. And if there's anything there you disagree with, we'll have it out, And so the label, as long as we stick to that, as long as we demonstrate this is what we want, and I think we all do demonstrate this. That's frankly why I'm here. If you're all saying, well, I want this, but I hate the niggers, I would know that you're not demonstrating the principles of egalitarianism that I want.
But I hate niggers.
Exactly. See, I would know regardless, but you don't do that, and none of us do that. And so there's going to be no question of the fact that we are demonstrating the principles that we are trying to adhere to, because this is what we do on YouTube all the time. We've all got bodies of work demonstrating that this is what we're standing for. So it doesn't matter what they actually cause. I mean, feminists say that we're all misogynists, and yet I get people coming to me saying, "Oh, the feminists are saying horrible things about you," but I watched your videos and they were lying or they were wrong, and I've subscribed, and I'm like, thanks very much.
Sure, but what about the people who believe that? I mean, look at what happened with Gamergate, for example. You had, a whole movement which was patrolled and, had the trolls called out and everything, and you still had, news outlets coming out.
Gamergate was okay, let me give you a quick brief down of why Gamergate didn't succeed nearly as well as it needed to. Gamergate didn't know it didn't know it was a movement. It didn't know it was anything. It'd been bubbling under the surface, but nobody had communicated with anyone until, my God, it just got to the point where everyone was sick of their shit.
It was an angry reaction.
Yeah, it was ad hoc. It was all off the top, and it was thrilling to go through, man. I'm so pleased with my involvement in Gamergate. Every day I'd wake up energized. I'm like, man, I want to know what the fuck they've said and done stupid today that everyone can rip on. This is going to be amazing. I loved it, right? But it was Gamergate itself is a scandal. It's not an identity. It's not even really a movement. But there are people in it who want to be part of a movement, and that's why it became kind of identified as such. But it wasn't really. It was just a scandal. That's why it was called Gamergate, and that's why it clicked with everyone. But there were a lot of people who suddenly realized they were on the same page on a few core issues. There were other issues they weren't on the same page on, and that's fine, because they didn't really matter. What mattered were the issues being debated, and that's basically what we're going to need to do. But we're going to need to I don't want to say arrange it, but be more wise. A lot of us have got a lot of experience from doing this now, and I think that we can actually come out swinging so hard, they're not going to know what hit them. If we come out and say, look, we're the new skeptics or whatever, and these are our statement of values, is there anyone who disagrees with these? The normal people are going to be like, well, no, of course not. And like, so we can literally just kind of basically convert people without them even knowing, without the feminists even knowing that something's going on.
Well, I think I have a very pertinent question though, especially for you, Sargon. Especially so this idea that you're crafting up. Am I wrong in assuming this is kind of a counter to regressivism?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
you need to put forward a positive worldview. You can't just simply be anti something.
Well, the main thing that I have in mind when thinking about this is regressivism works because it puts an amount of societal pressure onto people so that you cannot question the narrative. If you question the narrative, you're labeled as this. If you have a question against this, you're labeled as this. The entire process of regressive policies is to silence and disempower people to have a different point of view. So first and foremost, I mean, if ever there's going to be a counter, it has to empower people that if you disagree, that's okay.
Well, look at my debate on the Brexit with Thunderfoot. I mean, people were like, oh my god, what's going on? And Thunderfoot was like, no, this is the system working as intended. We're meant to have disagreements of opinion. We're meant to talk about them, have a debate about them, and then we're still meant to respect each other at the end of it, which I think is exactly what has happened.
Right, and that's the type of conversation that should be encouraged, absolutely.
Exactly. Lead by example, basically.
The one thing that I worry about, though, and this is why I brought up Gamergate, was I think that was a huge issue with the movement, but I think that another huge issue was they didn't have that much influence either, especially compared to the outlets. So if we were to formulate a movement now, we'd want it to be so fast-growing and so hard-hitting that before the outlets can report on us and label us as racists or bigots or whatever, we can put out our message and show ourselves how we are.
But literally, I think that the statement of values that we'll all put out will be obviously not racist. So calling us racist will be stupid. They will be like Don Quixote, tilting at windmills. They'll have made up nonsense. And people will go, look, they're not advocating for racism. They're actually advocating anti-racism. You know, they're not advocating sexism, they're actually advocating anti-sexism. And this is the point. When someone feels that they can't be cowed, I want someone to turn and go, no, look, mate, I am a new skeptic. I don't just listen and believe. You can say this, but I want the evidence. And if you can't prove it, and I don't think you can, then we're not going to accept it. And I'm going to stand by that. And I want them to have hundreds of thousands of people at their back on Twitter, on Facebook, wherever they can use a hashtag to be able to say, no, he's right, look, this. You know, and it can literally be this giant group effort to push these people back because this needs to happen.
Well, I'd like to offer something real quick from somebody who's not here, but somebody that we know, and this is Habib. He was hitting me up on Skype just now, and he did raise a few interesting points here. Now, he wanted to say that a label itself will become an ideology. That leads to ideologues, and we're back at square one. Now, that was kind of what I was getting at with the factional thing, but he then points out, you know, a written manifesto, so will this manifesto be interpretable in different ways? And if that's the case, how do you avoid that? Now, this is coming from his perspective. He even says, you know, he finishes, he's like, you know, I'm sorry, I was limiting myself with one label for the majority of my life. I don't plan to walk into another. So I mean, the inclusion aspect of this needs to be as broad spectrum as possible.
Yeah, I think being as specific as you can, using common English, you know, definitions that people can just pick up a dictionary to find out what you mean, is important. You know, I don't want any esoteric language with this. I don't want anything that people don't already know the meaning of. This is how we capture people. You know, it's not by making up cisgendered or heteronormative or anything bollocks. It's by using the standard English definitions of words that actually have meaning in people's minds already.
I think the key to everything here is that it has to be evidence-based, because the downfall of atheism plus and free thought blogs and so on. I mean, sure, it was the fact that it was infested with narcissists, and you know, blocking became, you know, their favorite pastime. But it's also just the fact that they lost track on probably the most important criteria in skepticism, and that is the fucking evidence.
Obviously.
That's the thing. If I am to take this potential movement seriously, that's something that always has to be, no matter how small the claim is, no matter how innocuous it may seem, you have to be able to back it up.
I just assume that was a given for everyone here.
Obviously
we would obviously insist on science, reason, and empiricism.
Absolutely, I would like to support Sandra in this claim, because what I've noticed that a few people in this, I don't even know how to call it, Redditosphere or whatever.
Skeptosphere.
Let's call it Skeptosphere for now. That people tend to use absolutely garbage evidence and still claim to come from a sort of scientific, empirical, critical background, and their evidence is basically Stormfront or something like that.
Oh yeah, I know. Trust me, I know that all too well. I've argued, and this is another thing. Like, people go on and on about the SJWs. It's even becoming trendy in a way to oppose them. But there is another group of people, the alternative right, who are growing as well, and who are just as scientifically illiterate.
Okay. Absolutely.
And I can't tell you how many times I've had to basically research. About genetics. It's not really my field, but I do understand the basics of it as a chemistry student. I've had to, research just genetics. Thankfully, I know where to look for stuff because I am in STEM, unlike these fucking clowns. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and some of these people are actually gaining a lot of attention just simply because they are anti these, annoying SJWs. But they're not rationals. They're not skeptics. They just have another. Agenda to support. That's the only difference. It just happens to be anti to the other annoying side. So that's what people are pulled to. That's another thing that actually needs to be highlighted in this. If this supposed movement is to survive in the future, one must also focus on actually teaching people how to do proper fucking research, because this drives me up the fucking walls.
Yeah.
It's not easy. I realize that to always make to do research on certain topics.
Can we get Armored Skeptic on?
I thought he was hanging out with Shu for her birthday, but yeah.
If he wants to come on, someone has to leave. That's
I was gonna head off anyway, guys. I got to run. So thanks for having me.
Isn't it 9 in the morning where you are?
It's 10 o'clock.
Whoa. Okay.
Great to see you as always, Baring.
That's a fucking idiot.
Nice. Good talking.
See you later, Kat.
See you later.
Since we have so many big name YouTubers in here, we should all say happy birthday to Shu on Head, though.
I hope she fucking dies.
Well, that's kind of the opposite, but all right.
Should we do a group happy birthday song?
I think we should.
I would sing it in German, though.
The latency is going to make it into a cacophony of just...
Fucking do it anyway. Do it in your native
Which
language.
one do we want to do? I don't want any British
I haven't actually. Wait, no, I haven't
Actually, guys, I realized something. Happy birthday is copyrighted.
Not just that. Instead of singing it, no. Here's the thing, Kraut. Instead of singing it, give us the same sort of rousing speech voice you use for Black Hitler in German, only speak the words to Happy Birthday.
You want me to do my Hitler impression again?
Yes, while speaking the lyrics to Happy Birthday to Shu.
But in German, you gotta do it in German.
Oh, God. Let me find the lyrics.
Oh, come on, zum Geburtstag viel Glück, you faggot.
Zum Geburtstag viel Glück. Ja, aber ich habe das jetzt seit Ewigkeiten nicht mehr gesungen. Okay,
Prepare to be triggered, Internet.
Jesus fucking Christ.
Also, before you
Zum
start,
Geburtstag...
press 1 for Holocaust, since we're already here.
You know what? I can't find the fucking lyrics anyway, so it's
It's 5 words, isn't it?
Liedertext.
Nigga, it's literally zum Geburtstag viel Glück like 6 times. Fucking die.
Yeah, what does it say? Zum Geburtstag viel Glück, zum Geburtstag viel Glück, zum Geburtstag viel... What's the point of fucking...
For Shu on Head's birthday, we had an angry German shouting into his microphone for her.
Oh, do you know the other birthday song in German? Heute kann es regnen, stürmen oder schneien. denn du scheinst dasselbe wie ein Sonnenschein. You know that one?
Everyone who speaks German just noticed where you are from your accent.
Oh no, come fuck off, Mike. My accent is fucking impeccable.
Yeah. But if I could just finish on my point about, let's see, I'm trying to remember here what it was about. Oh yes, the people, like you say, Layman, there are some people who are starting to get a lot of a bigger audience now these days, and it's kind of dangerous because these people, the only reason they're popular is because they are anti-SJW, but that doesn't mean that they are any more rational or skeptical. And I have to say this, I made this video recently about the angry foreigner, and he is a person who obviously, I mean, either he doesn't know how to do any proper fucking research, or he just doesn't care that much, or he has some kind of agenda. I don't know
Let's assume
which.
incompetence before we assume malice.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm assuming that he doesn't know how to. But in my video, I showcased how he uses these links to these laughable studies and claims that he believes in this reap culture because the science supports it. I pretty much tear this apart, and I get these fucking fanboys who downvote the video. I mean, I think the video was up like 30 seconds before I got my first downvote.
Oh, he's the least concerning of all people. These people are the more concerning are, for example, the YouTubers who claim that gender transition surgery was invented by Jews to degenerate the white race. These are people gaining popularity.
I'd like to respond to Sandra. The phenomenon we are essentially describing here is, and I think you're familiar with the term, scientism, right? You know that term?
Oh yeah, God.
Scientism is essentially the blind adherence to anything labeled science. So it's basically you open up a tabloid and you get an article saying, oh, scientists created this or that, and it doesn't even fucking cite the study. This is fucking scientism. And we've seen a tremendous rise of scientism, which is just, it's both sad and horribly dangerous.
Scientists confirm North Koreans are master race.
Absolutely. Like, for instance, some time ago, I talked with Sandra about that as well, about Boolean truth tables, which is essentially discrete mathematics. And I had people come up to me and call it social justice warrior nonsense. And I literally don't know how to respond to that.
Well, this kind of,
I mean, Boolean algebra isn't really what you could call intersectional feminism. It's quite the opposite. Yeah.
Well, what's the opinion in general here of the term, the label, and the concept of empiricism?
It's a bit loaded in a more academic sense.
In a philosophical sense, it's rather loaded too, but it does.
It sounds like a subcategory to me.
Yeah.
You will run into difficulties with any kind of term because most of the terms associated with Enlightenment values are very broad terms. They encompass many things of many things of free thought, many aspects of free thought.
I think if any term is used, it should encompass some idea of individualism, because essentially that's what it all boils down to. You know, whether you get into more skepticism side, or more, because pretty much it's not really going to be a movement that's going to be exclusionary to any particular ideas.
No, the point is it's an anti-ideology. So it's a position of removing yourself from an ideological standpoint. It's the idea of it is looking at everything that comes at you from a skeptical lens. So the reason we were using skepticism as the working title was because the point of it is that you don't want to just accept things that you hear on the base of it, the problem is too that what we've got is the left is sliding further to the left and the right is sliding further to the right, and it feels like every argument that's made from the left or the right seems to lump everybody else into the same category. So people on the right will see egalitarianism as a social justice stance, and then people on the left will see egalitarianism as like an anti-equality movement. And skepticism has always been one of those things that gets attacked from both sides. Like I remember even just when I came up with the name Armored Skeptic, everybody's like, "Oh, good, skeptics get attacked from both sides." And this is when that feminism had just poked its head into the skeptical realm. This is when feminism had just created the schism in the atheist movement in the beginning. I've always seen skeptic as being a neutral position, and it's about not taking a stance. It's about sitting in the middle, being fine with being in the middle, and being neutral, and being okay with the fact that you don't take hard stances on things. It's about the individualism thing. I realize I'm coming in this conversation, so I might be taking some of the things you're saying out of context. But
no, that's pretty on par.
I disagree with that, to be honest.
Yeah, the question is it possible to well, you guys can answer this, is it possible to be a skeptic while still maintaining some core principles?
Well, that's the thing, is that it's not exactly a commentary on skepticism itself. Skepticism isn't about taking a position. That's why we're calling it, well, that's why the working title is New Skepticism, because we're saying we're skeptics, but we're skeptics with a specific mindset. So what happened is the four of us, when we first started talking, we realized that we have a lot of things in common. And I don't know if Sargon shared his first draft.
I haven't shared anything yet.
Okay, so
who exactly is involved in this first draft, if I might ask?
Okay, so basically it's just like it's basically just we believe in egalitarianism. We believe in meritocracy. We essentially believe in everything that our society is currently built on, and that's
does that also have? Oh, I'm echoing.
Yeah.
Does that also have the rule of no fake jewelry?
Well,
it was a joke. Atheism plus.
If I can respond,
you know, I might throw out though. We're focusing very heavily on the name, which is important. It needs to be well chosen, but it's also going to be basically a part of the introduction to effectively, and I hate to use the term, a doctrine or a statement of principles. Now, within that, as you know, Sargon mentioned it earlier, the elevator pitch. The name itself, that's to draw attention. It's the first opening, I'd say, 3 lines to this introduction to what this idea is that matters. So even within that, you know, acknowledging that it can be called many, many things. It can be called Enlightenment values. It can be called empiricism. It can be called
the
skeptical inquiry.
The name is inconsequential. The name is more of a title, and we wanted.
It does have. I mean, it is important. It's just not the most.
There is power in the name.
Right. There is power in the name. That's true. What we wanted though is a name that kind of encompassed the position of skepticism. The point that we don't want to get swept up in sensationalism. That's essentially like the core tenet, is that we don't allow ourselves to get caught up in sensationalism, because sensationalism can detract from these core values of individual rights, individual freedoms, freedom of speech.
Welcome to the pickpocket party. Now that we have your attention, this is what we're about.
Right, exactly.
The elevator pitch would literally just be, we're fighting for Enlightenment values.
Well, plus, also, it kind of came as like a realization that the original, like, it actually started off as a joke. I made a picture saying, you know, Sargon, Thunderfoot, TJ, and I are the new 4 horsemen. I was drunk when I made this. But then what happened, though, is we realized that the original 4 horsemen, they're either dead or retired or irrelevant. And it's not because they're tired. It's not because what they have to say is irrelevant. It's because the conversation in society has changed drastically since they were the 4 horsemen. The discussion is now about more nuanced social issues, and these are things that, well, first of all, Sam Harris doesn't even want to participate in this discussion.
There we go.
He's all but retired himself from the public eye.
I was going to say, keep your eyes open for angry fanboy letters.
He's on his own. If nothing else.
I would like to respond to you, Armor, when it came to one of your points, and the thing about skepticism is that it is dependent on certain key principles. So yes, you can, not only can you be a skepticist with certain key values, you have to have these key values in order to be skeptical. That's the whole point. It's sort of like this whole debate that I had on one of my streams where you remember, Layman, where we discussed the difference between personal morals and professional ethics and so on, and how ethics is needed to be part of science, for instance. The thing about skepticism is you need to have certain key principles, such as the burden of proof. You need to have it being based on evidence. You need to have a meritocracy. You need to have an authority ladder.
Certain things like the meritocracy don't necessarily fit in with skepticism, which is why we added the word "new" to it. Also, we wanted to connect it to the new atheist movement, because we feel very much like where we started with our position was very much because of the new atheism movement.
You still haven't answered my question before that. Who exactly is involved in this first draft?
So far the four of us, Thunderfoot, Sargon, TJ, and I. But it's not like we literally want to become the new Four Horsemen. What we wanted to do was kind of just kickstart this idea. Drunk. But no, Sargon and I don't know who else Sargon's talked to, but I know Sargon's been talking about this idea for a long time. He and I have been hashing this thing out for a really long time. And at the first time he brought it up, I remember he wanted to discuss it with the humanist movement, and I think we all kind of decided that was a bad idea.
Yeah,
it's turned into an answer at this
after
point.
seeing the American Humanist Society fall to SJW so hard, I was just like, okay,
Yeah, they're crazy.
It was even before that, though, because one of the things I always make very clear on several of my videos, in my channel description and everything, is that I don't want to be part of an ideology, and I thought of it as being very hypocritical of me to kind of hijack an ideology when I am so adamantly against that kind of a thing. And I think the lesser of two evils, and like I've gotten to a point where I still see myself very much as an independent, and I still see myself very much as having my own kind of ideals, but I'd rather help create some sort of like base ideal that maybe you can call an ideology if you want, than completely remove myself from the conversation altogether.
That's really the key, though, and that's kind of the problem. The rise of pop sci, popular science. I fucking love science. The very basis for how science became popularized, and now you have any number of different people utilizing science as a weapon to push regressive ideologies, various different concepts. This thing, it's already happening. Like I was mentioning to Sargon earlier, it's already happening on Facebook. I'm looking at groups right now. Skeptic groups that have thousands and thousands of people, and I'm fucking banned from all of them, just because they push ultra regressive social justice policies, and that is how they've co-opted the idea.
Yeah.
So the idea that you manufacture, this idea, which I do think has a lot of value, and I'm very excited about it. But what Sargon says is absolutely important. It has to be concrete. It cannot be co-opted. It has to be simple, and it has to be blunt.
Well,
otherwise, people won't take it.
Yeah, one of the things too is that a lot of arguments from modern groups seem to be based on emotional responses. A lot of it is appeal to emotion, and we don't want to remove emotion completely as a factor when making decisions, but a lot of these social issues are a little bit too nuanced to be based entirely on emotion. And what we want is that, like, you can make an emotional based argument, but if you don't have empirical evidence to kind of back up your position, then your position is entirely useless as an argument point.
Or best it's questionable. I mean, I think within, like, we see, like you were saying, this new scientism movement and such. It kind of mirrors what I see has been a corruption of skepticism and atheism in general, which is it's been rooted in a rejection of religion based on political principles rather than actually skeptically inquiring about the nature of the claims being made.
Yeah, the conversation has changed a lot too. I mean, it used to be very clear what a new atheist was, and now new atheism has been split into so many factions that it's almost meaningless to say you're a new atheist now, because it doesn't really properly describe your position anymore.
So new atheism and atheism plus are different.
Oh
yeah,
very much.
And they're both different than anti-theism as well. And anti-theism itself seems to have something that's, in addition to falling by the wayside.
No, atheism plus was a hijack. Of atheism.
Yeah, it was, and that was the central thrust, though, the corruptive influence within it, is that rather than skeptically inquiring as to the claims being made as to the nature of the divine, it instead became a rejection of religion based on the politics and social politics rooted in emotional arguments.
Right.
That's the entire thing.
Which is usually a point that gets tossed out the window when talking about Islam, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You think? I think you should have been here earlier. Crowd discussing his
Islam is a religion of peace. If you say otherwise, I'm gonna fucking behead you.
Islam is a religion of pieces at this point.
Oh god.
No, report it. Flat out report it.
I just want Dark Matter to come in here just so he can say, "Oh, we'll fucking kill you."
It was a joke. I forgot who said it, but it was like, Islam is a religion of peace. There's a piece of you over there and a piece of you over there.
Exactly.
I have to say, Armored Skeptic, he's really good at doing voices.
Yeah, I'm not bad, I guess.
The best ventriloquism. You do two voices at the same time.
So, since we've sort of migrated back to the topic of Islam, I actually have a question here from the YouTuber The Pharaoh. I don't know if you're still listening, Pharaoh, but he had a question for Sargon. He says, can you ask Sargon if he thinks it's over for us ex-Muslims and anti-Islam YouTubers in general because of the new guidelines? And also, can we do anything about it if we made enough noise?
I think we can do something about it if we make enough noise, but we need a unified voice to do it.
It's not over because you saw they took down AIU's channel. They didn't. They swamped Introverted Smiles channel. They swamped the channels of several other ex-Muslims, but they didn't swamp. They didn't take their channels down.
No.
They actually engaged. They even engaged in conversations with them, trying to convert them back, more or less.
Well, here's
the way 4 in the morning in Egypt, so I doubt he's up.
Because this, at least it sounds as though we're not seeking to outright be a new atheist movement. That there's room for the faithful as long as the Enlightenment principles which we hold dear are held close.
And that's really more it is. It's more of a stance on, like you said, the Enlightenment principles. It's more of a stance on our outlook as it is opposed to like what we're not an activist group. We're not actively going out demanding these things because these are things that essentially are what we already base our society on. What it is we're kind of just sticking our flag in the sand as the sand being swept out from under our feet, saying, "Hey, this still exists right here."
Well, this stems actually from a live stream I was in with Focus Break Habib earlier, in which he's and I don't know if you're familiar with him, Armored. He's an ex-Muslim atheist from Saudi Arabia. He's currently living in Dubai, and I agree with Kraut. The man's got balls the size of fucking dump trucks just by putting his face and his name out there and saying, "I reject Islam and I reject Wahhabism," and he still lives in that area. Now he held a live stream and he's working and hoping to actually promote these networks that he's discovering of people who want Islamic reform. They want to hold on to their religious values, but they want to embrace human rights and secular governments and the things of this. And he's discovering there are far more of him than he had even really known. Now, would this be the sort of thing, and I guess this is the panel we're discussing this on, does anybody here think that this is the sort of thing which, if we're going to try and kickstart a movement towards humanistic Enlightenment values, the sort of thing which would be something worth promoting and bringing in to the fold?
Here's the thing. There is this ex-Muslim Iranian who I follow, and he's also one of the guys with, one of these people with enormous balls, because that's a guy who literally risks death. and he keeps posting social media updates out of Iran, for example. For example, how on the Iranian social media the Orlando attacks were celebrated, and how they celebrate death for faggots. Oh, how wonderful! Allahu Akbar. And I noticed this guy's channel in the aftermath of the Paris attacks, when he was making comments and tweets saying that yes, Islam has something to do with why these attacks happen. And I noticed his attack due to the hashtag #FuckParis that was started by Black Lives Matter activists, who were attacking this guy as a racist for criticizing Islam in the wake of the Paris attacks. So even if you promote these kind of ex-Muslim or even just secular movements within the Islamic world, you know, even our regressive movements here in the West are even enemies of these movements over there.
But we gotta be honest about controversiality, essentially. Promoting a Islamic reform movement or something like that is going to be controversial as fuck. And let's not kid ourselves here. The future of the YouTube rantosphere or skeptosphere, whatever, is going to be Islam for the next few months, maybe even years.
Let's not kid ourselves. Free speech is controversial now. We are past the line of demarcation here.
That is the one thing that links all of the regressive movements and Islam and everything, is that they're all anti-free speech. There seems to be, I'm not getting into conspiracy theory territory here, but there's clearly a bigger power that is noticed that they all have this one thing in common, and it feels like they're all being used in tandem as a 1-2 punch to get rid of free speech in the West.
I don't think it's organized. I think it's natural influences just operating. If you're an organization and you've got 3 different groups of people all asking you to curtail free speech, maybe you'll do it.
Well, this is much like Hitchens, like saying it's overlapping magisteria in a sense.
Yes. Right. It's sort of a perfect storm of various interests converging on one thing that they can all do to benefit themselves.
Yeah, and they all see them responding to other groups and say, well, why wouldn't you respond to us as well?
And I would say that this whole idea, this whole notion of, you know, like getting people's channels banned or silencing the opposition is a fairly recent development, because even like back before, like when people used to criticize like other, you know, religious YouTubers, like when the Christian and the atheist YouTube sphere used to go at it, there was never really this, you know, drive for atheists, you know, like shut down the channels or anything like that. There was just discussion, and some people, you know, got triggered and left. But this whole new concept of trying to, you know, actually get rid of the opposition where their voice can't even be heard, it's a regressive mindset. It's something that's only come up and is strengthening with regressives.
Habib would like to join us.
I can leave, yeah.
Okay.
So it's left at 2 time.
Well,
anyway,
I actually have to head out. I'm taking June out for her birthday.
Happy birthday, June.
Happy birthday, June.
Skeptic, before you go, I have a really important question for you.
Okay,
would you fuck Emma Watson if you could fuck a cat afterwards?
you can tell he's from 4chan.
Okay, goodbye.
You can't answer that on her birthday night. You guys know that.
Okay, you know, Skeptic. Sadly, you disappeared before I had time to say this in person, but I'm gonna say it anyway, just because I'm an asshole. You know, bang shoe for the both of us.
Oh, that's fucking gay, dude.
Hey, I'm just kidding. I have a girlfriend, for fuck's sake.
Sandre will be watching from the closet.
Yeah,
like a proper Swede.
He qualifies that afterwards, but he knows that the pussy that somebody else bangs in his place is better than the pussy he doesn't get to bang himself.
Salamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Hey, Habib.
So we have an Arab now. All we need is a woman.
Well, I mean, this is like your diversity quota. I mean, you gotta have someone brown at least.
Yeah, we got the black guy, we got the Arab,
the Jew. I've noticed that. Now, our streams tend to be a lot more diverse than the ones which try and get diverse people on.
Oh, come on, you're all Westerners. It's not diverse at all. Skin, like color of skin.
I understand.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Salil
fine.
al-Sawadin, maybe.
Just everyone check your Gentile privilege, please, real quick. Thank you.
So yeah, I mean, I heard like you guys were talking about Islam. I was like, wait. This is my topic.
Okay,
Let me
your
in.
ears started ringing when you were referenced.
Yeah. I was like, they're talking about my stuff. But yeah, I don't know, like I'm jumping in the middle. But
Tell
yeah,
us
I've been.
about these groups. Tell us about these people.
Yeah, I've been discovering
Brilliant
these people.
shit.
Yeah, I just wanted to like look for like any liberal Islamist movement, and I knew some of them before, but I didn't know to what scope they were in. And I discovered this movement called the Muslim Reform Movement. And unlike most of the others that came before them, they're not trying to just fix the Islamist problem from a social or religious point of view. They're not just going to the mosques or talking to people. No, they're trying to fix it from a political level. They're talking to politicians. They're going to the UN, doing speeches over there, going to colleges. And yes, they go to mosques and they challenge the mullahs in mosque and go like, hey, these are the tenets that we believe in. Do you believe in it? If you don't, then you're part of the problem. And their tenets are quite simple. They believe in peace, which is, no violence to anyone. They believe in human rights, so no discrimination, and they believe in secularism, so the depoliticization of Islam, and Islam is just a faith. And
join us.
And yeah, I mean, I did a stream just about a few hours ago I was trying to promote them. I already contacted them, I'm trying to get them onto a stream or something, because yeah, even in their press conferences they get like 20 plus people. You can imagine, like, even I was listening to some of their speeches. Every single one of them got plenty of death threats, as you can imagine. And they're not really getting their voices heard. So I was thinking, like, in our little community here, we can get those people the audience that they deserve. And I think they would find a lot more support in our little atheist community here, because whenever we talk about the Islamization of Europe, or Islamist problem in the Middle East, the terrorist attacks that are happening all over the world, we don't just talk about them and stop. We are discussing solutions, and I think these guys are the right, the right people to support to get those solutions done. Because we can whine and complain on the internet all we want. We can just go like, well, there's many people killed, 50 gay people killed, and there was the terrorist attack just yesterday in Jordan, and a border control which forced them to close the border, and right now the refugees that are going to Jordan, they can't go there anymore. So yes, even the Middle East, we're getting daily terrorist attacks all over the place. What are the solutions? That is a solution, to reform Islam from its core.
And this is, if we want to tackle notions of Enlightenment values, the previous Enlightenment was able to take hold in Europe, but that was because it was in an age before people could communicate across the world as easily as they can. And this was what I was discussing with Habib before, is that right now, though the challenges facing the rational Enlightenment circles that exist within our various societies, the challenges are enormous. The battle is strictly uphill, and it just keeps getting steeper. But at the same time, the sort of weapons and means by which we can actually spread the message of rational thinking and critical inquiry and these sorts of things, they've never been greater, and especially in places such as the Middle East, where, I mean, if you look at your average third world shithole, one of the most common complaints about the refugees flooding into Europe is, look, they all have smartphones. How bad off could they be? Now, that argument aside, the reality is that they all have smartphones. They have access to information technology. They have access to information. Habib here has been playing Doom with an IDF soldier. A Saudi playing a video game alongside an IDF soldier, if that's not a sign that communication can begin and rational discussions can happen, I'm not sure what is.
Oh, by the way, that IDF soldier was the first person I met in Doom.
That's awesome.
I think you're absolutely right there, Nick. I think you're absolutely right.
And this, you know what? And when you mentioned, like, you wanted to spur a humanist movement of some kind on before, and then I got mired up in different discussions because it was born out of a debate, and also because humanism itself became humanism plus in the public eye. But the time really is right to strike the iron. It's time, and it's not just for us. It's not just for the West fighting social justice. It's for the people that social justice ignores who need real social justice.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing about the label that you guys are suggesting. I mean, I have absolutely no objection over it because I don't know the nuance behind it so far. However, I have this knee-jerk reaction whenever someone goes like, "We have a label here. It's so awesome. Come and join us." I escaped being indoctrinated by Islam for the vast majority of my life. I think I became like an atheist, like a full atheist, at the age of 24. So that's just 10 years ago. I don't want to be swept into another ideology. I just don't want to. I don't want any labels at all.
Then you're never going to persuade people who aren't you. You'll only ever persuade individuals. That's the problem. That's the problem we have. That's the problem we have. We have got hundreds of thousands of people at our backs, and we can't do anything with them until we have a name for them.
Yeah. I think that's something that needs to be central. Regardless, you need to approach people as individuals, and if this new movement is supposed to work, one can never, and I mean this, you can never treat an individual as though, I mean, we can never commit the genetic fallacy and see it as, okay, well, this person comes from this background, and therefore it's not even it's not even worth our time to deal with this person. We need to treat the people we encounter who are dissenters as individuals, because it's like you say, Sargon, it's individuals that you convert, and you won't get anywhere if you are stuck in this us and them mentality.
No, when
I
you
think the chat hates me
change
for
to an organization, you have to represent individuals.
I think the chat hates me for not liking labels.
No,
You know, I hate
dangerous thing.
labels too. I hate labels too, Habib. But it's just that you know, some labels are inevitable, I guess, and I don't really like identity politics or anything like that. But yeah, at this time I see Sargon's point that you need to have some kind of unifying
Banner.
Yeah.
Regarding identity, Sargon is sadly right on this one. Like, I think we all would agree that a unifying identity label is not something we want, but it might be something we need. The most efficient way of motivating and mobilizing the masses is to offer them identity. Why do you think that Anonymous was so fucking successful? It offered kiddies a means of identifying themselves. So, yeah, give the plebs a means of identifying themselves, of essentially virtue signaling, but doing something different.
The important thing, though, thing is that we identify it. That's feminism's golden ticket. Is that
Sargon,
they identify themselves.
I agree with you. Like, yes, you want to identify it, you want a banner, you want something to, you know, as an umbrella to just cover us all and just a cause to march on. However, I explained my reasoning. I agree with you. I have a knee-jerk reaction to anyone going like, "This label is awesome."
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, because normally when someone says this label is awesome, they've just been indoctrinated with it, and I don't think we should run around going, "This label is awesome." I think we should lead by example. Each individual one of us should say, "Well, look, I'm for this, this, and this," and be like, "What are you, a liberal?" You go, "No, I'm a new skeptic. This is what I want." Blah 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 blah.
In addition to that, though, sorry, Jeff, but in addition to that, I mean, one of the central tenets of this is naturally going to be skepticism as a concept.
Yeah.
It's the idea that no idea is above critical inquiry, and that includes, if it's called the New Skeptics, well, is New Skepticism itself something worth supporting? Let's hash over the evidence and talk it out.
I absolutely agree with you, Habib. I mean, as far as I reject labels myself too, as I'm a fierce individualist. I like to think that I stand solely on my own ideas. But there is one important fact that changes this for me. Somebody recently asked me, in the realm of ideas, in the free marketplace of ideas, are we winning? And I had to be honest, and I said, no, we're not. We're not winning. We're losing, and we're losing fast. And just the individualistic voices that we lend can only do so much. If there is some way to affect a stereotype, a trope, a feeling that people can identify with and can they can relate to, that is important. As much as I reject labels, that I think we have to.
I would also like to add that we're not losing, we always had lost. We always fight from an underdog position.
I think the important thing is, again, this is Will Durant summarizing Aristotle, but the whole philosophy is you are what you repeatedly do, and we are all individualists. There's no doubt about it. And the reason we're individualists is because we want universal values that everyone can follow, that everyone can put their name to and say, yeah, okay, this helps me, you know. And I don't think that we will become a collectivist like movement or something. I don't think it would be possible. You know, I think that we are all so. I mean, people would be resistant to this if they were going to join us, and if they were collectivists, they will hate us. We will be their nemesis, and for good reason, because we are. And we've got to understand that, like skeptics, I don't really want to attack people. Well, I'm sorry.
Hello.
This is what we're doing now. We're attacking their ideas. We're coming for them because we're losing, and we have to fight back. This has to happen, or we're just going to lose. And this will be another blip in history where people are like, oh, that was cool, but that doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, Kraut, did you invite Runefoot?
No.
Yeah, good.
Because I'm not going to get angry over this now, but yeah.
Yeah, because for a second there, I thought you had lost your fucking mind.
Nope. I'm going to kick him out now. I don't know how he managed to get into every single fucking stream I ever hosted.
Cancer.
This guy turned up in every stream I hosted, and I don't know how he managed.
Who gives him the link?
I don't know. He just turns up every time.
Give it to
I'm guessing here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think his father was actually Athlete's Foot because he just keeps coming back.
Well,
you are the shitlord equivalent of dad jokes.
Going back to the topic, I am just going to say this, and before someone writes an article on the Huffington Post going like, in the latest news skeptics gathering, not enough female representatives.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Sexism.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the concerns that I have personally is that I mean, yes, the regressives or SJWs or whatever you'd like to call them, they tend to come up with names for people who oppose them. But even if we come up with a name for ourselves, you know that they're going to try to pollute it, and if not co-opt it, they're going to try to associate it with objectionable things.
Well, okay, hold on. The only label I put on myself, and I think that's just a description of who I am and what I do on my channel. I'm an ex-Muslim atheist. That's all I say about myself.
So you're saying you're halal?
But, however, I haven't met any single Muslim that called me that. They would call me a heathen, a pig fucker, a gay, or whatever.
It doesn't matter what they call us. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. If their names made any difference, I would not have a large subscriber base. It just wouldn't make a difference. What matters is what you do and what people see you doing.
If this is a pitched battle, then the ground that is taken or lost is in the minds who take a moment to consider what you're saying. You know, feminists have had a fine run of basically labeling everyone who is opposed to feminism in any respect as a misogynist, therefore hates all women. Anybody who opposes Black Lives Matter is a racist and hates all blacks. That's simply not the case. And it's time to I think the idea here is to unify the opposition to irrational, knee-jerk, reactionary thinking into some form of new enlightenment that we can enjoy for the time that it lasts before hopefully we get back to where we can have real arguments.
That's exactly it.
The problem of this is essentially we always tend to create a sort of enclosed bubble, essentially. Like, we all can disagree on stuff, make videos disagreeing with each other, no hard feelings, right? But the normie, the pleb, he most likely will avoid us like the plague. I mean, if Onision makes a video on feminism, do you think the normie will actually look at our responses and go, oh, you know, that's a valid point? Of course not. He'll see cute old Onision doing a quirky video on feminism and fucking hate us without even considering our point.
It's a defensive mechanism.
There's never reaching anyone.
Acknowledge the threat.
Onision's subscribers are 14-year-old girls.
Yeah, fucking
Everyone knows that. But
Okay, I have a suggestion here. Someone says that we should have the label called faggots. We can all be faggots.
We're already there.
I'm sure that'll go over well.
Red Fog, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I just wanted to say the one thing about the labels. All the isms are very good, skepticism and stuff, but they're too smart. It's all about a friggin' catchphrase. It's a title of a book. To say it, for it to sell, it needs to be catchy. The only thing I've seen that was somewhat catchy was what people said, Newgate. The gate is like an automatic exclamation mark since Watergate. Newgate, ironically, is also the name of an old prison. It could be a double meaning that we're against imprisonment of free thought, that it's for freedom and for, you know,
I think the problem with that is that gate generally denotes a scandal.
Yeah, in fact, I believe, what was it? It was that Mitchell and Webb look covered that.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps you could make the argument that this is a scandal of sorts, like a cultural.
Yes, exactly.
No, because a scandal ends. We want something that it will perpetuate.
I think that there's an interesting point in all of this. We often, regularly, make the claim we need evidence. We need a certain scientific progress, essentially. But even now, we are dropping it. I mean, we are speculating about models of participation, of relevance and controversy, but none of us has actually provided so far an actual study about what is a catchy term, what is a catchy brand.
That's political. Those are political consultants you need.
Or marketing experts.
Yeah, they're the same. Honestly, no, they are the same thing. I say right up and down, they are the same thing. It's a revolving fucking door. It's all the same thing. It's working on the Lippmann, Bernays, and Creel models of mass manipulation and finding out what the emotional ploys in people are so as to exploit them most effectively.
Essentially.
That's the dark side of doing this kind of shit. This is the ugly thing. This is why idealistic movements fail. Is because idealistic movements believe in the intrinsic value of what they're doing, and they believe that will simply shine through in everything they do and say. Meanwhile, those who unfortunately win are the dirty, underhanded Machiavellian readers of Robert Greene who understand that the masses require manipulation in order for guidance.
Yes, hello, I'm a big fan of Robert Greene. I read a lot of his work. This is why I think I have an answer for all of the points you guys are making. I have been planning this.
You have 48 of them, actually.
Actually, and another 33 strategies of war, as in addition to every other war manual you can think of.
Was that him?
33 strategies of war, yeah.
Oh, but the last time I checked in on him, it was just 48 laws. And
honestly, it's well worth it. It's just high quality.
I didn't even know it was out.
This is a war. We it's a culture war. We have to understand. We have to fight it that way. We have to be organized. We have to be smart. And unfortunately, sometimes you're going to have to use the tools of the enemy if you're going to want to beat them.
Mm-hmm. Sargon's going to make skepticism great again.
Basically.
And one thing I will add too
is from making this a cult of personality. Nothing against you, Sargon, but we should be very careful about trying to promote any form of leading personality. Essentially,
I agree. That's Sargonism. That's why I was me, TJ, Skeptic, and Thunderfoot were thinking about this, and they wanted to call it like the Four Horsemen. I'm like, no, but people can't call themselves that. They can't call themselves a horseman or something like that. It doesn't make sense. But if they say, "Oh, I'm a new skeptic," or I'm a human, whatever label, that doesn't require any other personalities because it's not talking about me. It's talking about the ideals that have been written down. It doesn't matter who writes down the ideals. I mean, it could be completely anonymous. But if they're good ideas, then they're good ideas, and that person will say, "Look, this is what I want." So it's. I agree with you. I don't want to create a cult of personality. I really
also,
right. I mean,
if you were to call yourselves horsemen, that would be very narcissistic.
Exactly. I would never do it. It's not what I want to create. It's not what I want to see happen, because it will fail. That's the thing.
I'm thinking
I want it to succeed.
It seems like new skepticism is really just the one that's naturally starting to sink now.
I think so too.
Right. Yeah. I mean that would be the idea of a cult of personality or a leading personality would be a fatal flaw, because I remember when I first started my channel a couple months ago, that was one of the first criticisms and negative comments I got was, oh, you're just a Sargon ripoff, you're just a Teal Deer ripoff. And my response was basically that, okay, maybe some inspiration was taken there, but the reason I'm doing this is because I think these issues are important, and I think the more people talk about this, the better. That's really what this is about for me, is anyone should be able to talk about this. Anyone should be able to pitch their interpretation in.
We all got these comments, by the way.
Figureheads. Well, I don't get them, but okay. But no, I mean figureheads within movements are inevitable. They're absolutely inevitable. It happened within Gamergate, and they did their best to keep it off, but then they just kind of emerged, and some of them weren't so great. But the fact is that figureheads do emerge. Now, if the thesis behind this, which in a historical context may even be regarded as a school of philosophy, who knows how fucking far it'll go, but within that, thought leaders are inevitable. Personalities and their words and the way they articulate what is to be expressed cannot be avoided within any of it. And if it is avoided to such a point that it never happens, those who you do not want representing this school of thought, this movement, become the de facto leadership of it, the faces of it, basically by manipulation.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of what happened to the alt-right, was even though I still think the Stormfronters and the Poltards and the race realists are still a minority of people who might call themselves alt-right, that what you're saying is essentially what happened is that now those people represent the alt-right, whether the majority of the alt-right likes it or not.
Yeah.
Although I do have to say, as someone who's unfortunately spent some time with the alt-right just to see what they're all about, I mean, they are, generally speaking, a bit nutty.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's not like it's this huge oversimplification either that they are sort of
reactionary ideologies breed reactionary ideologues and
honestly,
reactionary ideologues.
The first time I saw them, I was just like, well, these are just right-wing SJWs. They're collectivist, they're authoritarian. What more do you need to know?
Yeah. By the way, Sargon, do you remember this this calling card from them? Cock. Cock.
Jesus. Mate, I watch Ramsey Paul, and I've been watching for a while because he's a funny guy. And he made a video saying that he didn't like white nationalism, he just liked nationalism, because white nationalism was a controlling ideology and they wanted to tell him what he had to do. And my God, it was just cuck in his fucking comment section. I was just like, there we go. Who isn't a cuck? Even one of their leading bloggers is a cuck. You know, so it's just everyone's.
Just like the SJWs will shut down discussions by calling people ableist, sexist, and whatnot. The alt-right will shut down discussions by calling people cucks.
Yeah,
this is what ideologues do, though. This is the nature of what I think this is all set up against. This is a movement that is pitted against hardline orthodox ideologies, unmoving, rigid ways of thinking that are not flexible in the least, and that is the worst way that you can actually be a civil human being in a modern society, is to adopt one way of thinking without ever critically re-examining what it is you believe to be true.
And besides, it's an old political weapon, negatively charging a term and then using it against your enemies.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, even within our I guess sphere of discussion, I've noticed people who just want to, they basically just want to be like, oh, look at the stupid feminist, and pwn people and all that. And a couple weeks ago, about a month ago now, actually, a small channel called Liz Reptile tried to start a hashtag message to feminists, or message to skeptics, I should say.
Message to anti-feminists, I think it was.
Well, that one was a bit more recent. There actually was a separate one called Message to Skeptics, and Liz Reptile and Robin Gething tried to get this going, and it didn't really take off. But basically, the premise of it was about introspection and don't get too wrapped up in what your quote unquote your side is doing and having to be right all the time.
The thing about us, however, is that we are fully aware of these things. That we are that we believe in principles of falsification. That we question ourselves. I had this thing after the Cologne incidents where there were proposals to reform the German legal code concerning sexual assault, and I, of course, dished it all off and said, oh yeah, that's nonsense, that's just feminist talking points. And it wasn't until I took a closer look into the German legal code concerning sexual assault after laymen informed me on it, that yeah, the German legal code is in definite need of reform. Basically, if you, how did you describe it to me? If you walk up to...
It's very simple actually. There is no clause for molestation in the German law. You can walk up to people and grope them, and the judge cannot actually sentence you for molestation. He will try to sentence you for sexual insult. Now, here's the kicker. If you walk up to someone and say, oh, you are very attractive, and then start groping them and walk off, the judge has literally nothing he can do against you.
Oh my God.
That's crazy.
And that's a legitimate point, you know, there is nothing to do with feminism.
Well, no, that's, I mean, and well, this is the other thing I find people really, especially when they want to get into issues of politics, so oftentimes when people want to get into issues of politics, they miss the nuances of law. And law, especially in places which abide by very strict standards of codified legal precedent and standard. The letter of the law is the letter of the law. And this is, it's a funny thing here in a quick anecdote here in New England. In New Hampshire, if you get pulled over for suspicion of driving while intoxicated and you refuse a sobriety test, that's assumed to be an automatic admission of guilt. And when you get to court, you can challenge it, but you won't win. In Massachusetts, however, which is a common law state, it's based more on nebulous precedent which has been built up over hundreds of years. If you get pulled over for the same thing and you refuse a sobriety test, when you get to court, if the state tries to offer your refusal of a sobriety test as evidence of your guilt, it is an automatic mistrial, and you walk.
The point I was wanting to make is we are all, I mean, it is an inherent part of who we are and what we do on YouTube that we know what we do and that we question ourselves, and that it is part of being a rationalist. It is part of being a rational human that you question your own views.
And we seek out the nuance. We seek out the nuance and specifics and the real meat and gristle of what we're talking about.
The idea that we constantly need to remind ourselves and self-check ourselves and prevent ourselves of becoming ideologues. I mean, the reason why we are here and are doing what we are doing is because we rejected ideologues before.
So
otherwise we wouldn't be here.
So we'll have a Dos Equis meme. I don't always believe firmly in an idea, but when I do, I make sure to question myself about it.
Yeah. You know what? I may be a flea comparing to you guys because I just started, but that's one of the reasons why I actually came on. I saw too much of a recycling on an old system which my country stepped into like into a cow pile of shit.
Well, I'll offer you this.
For years.
A female with an exotic accent and a very bold sense of self, coming from a place where she knows what she's talking about in respect to authoritarianism. I think you'll do very well on YouTube so long as YouTube survives.
I
I
hope shill yourself harder.
Huh?
You just have to shill yourself harder, Frog.
Here's a question I have to pose to you.
I just suck at self-advertising, I admit it.
So do I.
The drunken peasants are about to start in 20 minutes. Do we just continue and go over their shows?
Who the fuck is the drunken peasants?
We just continue streaming, then we burst into their chat and start stealing their viewers.
They don't have a chat.
Fuck!
Oh, well, if they don't have a chat, we do. We're talking about democracy and freedom of ideas here. I think we need to maintain that for YouTube as long as we can.
Have
Plus,
you looked
I
at
have
our
nothing
chat?
else to do.
Have you seen our chat?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Why do you think did I make everyone a moderator?
And it's the best chat on
fucking
YouTube
cancer.
right now.
Yeah, it is cancer. I know. And people get banned left, right, and forward. I don't care. I call it democratic euthanasia.
I would call it the Colosseum.
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, we'll say that we're free speech absolutists. Is anybody here willing to actually accept direct threats of death or physical harm as being protected under that?
Yes.
Can you again, please?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, if we're free speech absolutist, is issuing threats of death and harm to others, is that protected?
Yes, I
Yes.
think it should be as long as they are not acted upon. It is not.
I have a few things to say about that. I'm in a place where people actually act upon those things.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, if someone issues a death threat and I can tell that they are local, I will report them to the police, where they will arrest them. I'm sorry.
I think you'll have a hard time persuading many people that death threats should be allowed.
Yeah, well, this is the nuance. This is really the nuance.
Here's the
that we
thing.
need to be going over.
I mean, no. Listen, I just want to say this.
This is still my stream, Swedish fag. What? Now I was almost forgetting what I wanted to say. So
you wanted to say that you should press one for Holocaust.
The thing about death threats is that this term has been so overused by the people that we have been confronting over the past 3 years that the word has kind of lost its meaning.
Well, let's not accept their definition. Let's establish the definition we know to be true.
Yeah, I mean, no. Listen. Here's the thing. It's like Kraut says. What exactly do you mean by a death threat? Do you mean that the person, him or herself, or as one should also say today, apparently according to SJW's, seer self, if they say that they will kill you, then that is a legitimate death threat. If they're serious or not, I mean, legally speaking, it doesn't really matter. But if they say something along the lines of, "Well, I wish you would die," well, no, that's not a death threat.
The thing is, if I read a comment and it reads something along the lines of, "I am going to kill you, fag. I'm going to kill you, blah blah blah," I don't really care particularly much. But if someone were to post a comment or send me a private message or something else reading, "I know your name is Hitler Goebbels Schnitzelberg and you live in Göring Street 400,
I knew you'd
Bavaria, and I am going to come to your house and kill you." That's the kind of thing I would take serious, but everything else, no.
Right,
I
mean,
think
that's...
can actually pass for German.
Yeah, but that's a question of
critique,
critique, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
right,
routinely see gas the Jews, and I'm probably the only Jew in this room right now, and it doesn't bother me in the slightest. But if it's, the Wizard of Gods needs to die. Again, that's directed, but I'm not really that there. But, you have Islamists coming in, so this is the question. How absolute is the free speech that we're willing to actually advocate for? Are we willing to defend somebody's right to say, Kraut and T, whose real name is such and he lives at such and such an address, needs to die? That is still an expression. So we do kind of have to acknowledge their
It is
limits
more than
within
an
our own-
expression. It is a call to an action as well.
Yes, that's something that even the American Constitution puts.
Absolutely. I'm not. I mean, and this isn't a challenge made any more than simply to say that the nuance within these questions is something which needs to be fully hashed out before we can define an absolute position.
These are not the kind of arguments that our opposition are having. You see, our opposition goes to the UN and says that being someone telling you that you suck is somehow harassment, or the German law which states that it is possible to infringe upon someone's rights.
Yes,
with
but we need.
speech.
I'm talking about setting the course of our own ship before we decide where the rest of the other fleets are going.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, these same people go to the UN. Different people. I'm sorry. Different people. People Habib here goes to the UN and says, we are under serious physical threat simply for trying to be ourselves, simply for trying to express ourselves. And the UN turns a blind eye and a deaf ear to it while at the same time calling cyber violence harassment. We need to make sure that our own ship is on the right course and on a specific course before we set sail.
I agree with you, but personally, I don't think trying to advocate for people's right to send death threats is a very productive avenue.
Not at all.
No.
I was seeking to clarify.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a mainstream discussion.
Yeah, maybe make that a line
hold that
item.
and say, look, I'm a free speech absolutist. I think that should be okay, but it's not something that we should be leading with. And incitement to violence, I don't think is protected speech.
If I may jump in, I find the word itself or the phrase absolutist to be really annoying. It's something I get. It's something that I, as someone who lives in a country where speech is very restricted, I mean, at least the most restricted in the free world, if we can call it that, I constantly get that thrown against me. When I argue for the abolition of the Nazi laws, people just say, "Oh, you're a free speech absolutist," in this weird fucking way. I'm for free speech. I'm not a free speech absolutist.
Well, that right there, though, this discussion right here, even within the attempt to establish a doctrine of principles, would say that even the use of the term absolutism, if we're looking to speak to as many people as possible and express as concrete an idea as we can without being limiting, is itself an issue that needs to be considered. This is, I mean, like, you know, we got Lehman here. He's the sociologist. I mean, this is my political consultant hat coming on. We need to.
It's valid. Also, I'm half. I'm half political scientist, so we're somewhat similar in most of our approaches, I think.
Yeah, it's just these are the things which need to be hashed out. I mean, we spent almost an hour going back and forth about the name. Imagine what's going to happen when we have to come to a decision as to what language within this specific doctrine itself we accept and consider as being something that we stand behind, not necessarily without question, but something that we will defend against the assaults of those who come.
I think there's quite an easy way to define free speech. It's the ability to propose political ideas without censure.
Well, I don't know if it has to be political, though, does it?
No, it does.
Thank you.
Thank you. Political.
No. I mean, political should be encompassed within that, but at the same time, ideas that are not intrinsically political themselves need to also be encompassed by this declaration of support.
But the thing is, our opponents are going to politicize everything. So anything we say will eventually become political to them.
And that's so. Then what we have there is an obligation to incorporate political speech into it, while also extending it beyond that.
No. Listen. Right. The reason we would define it like that, and I think that is the normal definition, whether people really understand it or not. That way, they can never say, "Oh, you're just advocating for death threats." You can say, "Well, what kind of political speech is that?" It's not. It's not political expression.
Well, beyond that, though, if I was to say that, and this isn't necessarily even something I believe, but as an example, if I was to say that transgenderism is a neuropathy, it's a form of a brain disease or something like that. Now, is that inherently political?
If you have a political movement pro-transgenderism, sure.
So it's a political movement in the eyes of those who hear it, yeah. But otherwise, it could just be...
No, it could just be a statement of scientific fact. I mean, I don't know whether it is or isn't. I'm just saying it could be that.
Well, this is the sort of thing. In the same way, sadly, and I hate to make the comparison, but feminism likes to highlight the political, economic, and social
it's entirely political.
Yeah, well, speech, I think speech, honestly, needs to be covered across those grounds, with an exception of saying that which poses physical, real-world harm to the life or property of those that the speech is being aimed at.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. That's exactly the point, right? You saying something doesn't matter if no one ever hears you. It's when it becomes politicized, when someone hears it, takes issue with it, and wants to turn it into an issue to stop you from saying it, then it becomes a politicized issue.
I agree with Sargon. What we have to keep in mind here is that speech inherently is just speech. It's just sound. Yeah. Politicization is always ascribed to speech.
Yeah.
This whole conversation is actually what I could call the phenomenon of a new republic being born and the first pains of it.
We're all just missing the scotch and cigar smoke right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
I'm not.
I got the whiskey.
Can we make cancer our official currency?
Honestly, at the rate I've been smoking throughout this stream, I'm probably the richest man here.
And while we're on this trend of disagreeing with one another, I will add this too, and going back to the original title of the video, I guess, with the new YouTube guidelines. This one is one that I've seen a lot of people who have criticized the new terms of service, who they've agreed with, is the one of revealing someone's personal information.
Yeah, that's the only one I agree with.
So but I don't agree with that one at all. I can see that being manipulated to where, for example, if you find some information on the Huffington Post to where they did something scandalous or something, out of the ordinary, and it was personal, but it was something that was of public interest, and you revealed it. Should that be cut down?
That's a good point. At least it might point to like their town or at least some relevant details about.
That's not a private address. Personal information. Exactly. That's what it says.
Well, we could. I mean, the precedent could effectively be established. Is the question of harm, right? The question of harm. If one is, let's say though, if one has already been doxxed and their information is already out there in the public, right? Now, if somebody else republishes that, are they as guilty as the originator of that dox?
Good question.
Well, when you talk about harm, then are we going to limit the speech of mullahs in the mosques?
Oh, that's actually a good point.
Someone told me, by the way, that YouTube essentially that I don't believe that person, but there might be some credibility to it. He told me that the main goal of these new terms of service was to crack down on prank channels and drama channels.
What?
Yes. That's what that person told me. That the main reason for the new community guidelines.
It would certainly be applicable to those channels.
Actually, YouTube taking that on as the central aim does make sense because honestly, despite all of the numbers, we could combine. Yeah, we could combine all of our numbers and all of those of our friends and even Amazing Atheists and Thunderfoot. We'd still get nowhere near the traffic that the internet pranksters and drama queens.
No, even like of one of their channels, to be honest.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Those channels of that insipid, mindless, harmful shit, and the talking, even channels just talking about other YouTubers, they dwarf. They dwarf the biggest rationalist speaker channels out there.
Which is something that I wanted to bring up earlier, actually, if I can. Content and presentation, right? Some of us create really good content that I personally like, and I think it's really good.
Thank you, Layman.
Fuck yourself up, Layman.
Yeah, dude, I fucking hate you, Layman. No, the thing is, there are channels who are tremendously bigger than all of us combined, who simply only have presentation and no real content. If we want to get through with this skeptosphere, whatever, we have to keep in mind that presentation is extremely important, even outside of any founding document or something like that, in our videos. If we don't have addictive, fast-paced, noise videos that people will like to come back to, nobody will give a fuck about us.
Well, I think that comes down to the individual, and because each individual person has a different kind of charisma or not. You can look at the Amazing Atheist channel. I mean, his channel is 100,000+ subscribers, and his presentation is awful.
Yeah.
I actually think in the realm we're dealing with ideas, so I think that it matters what they're saying, not how they present it. I mean, my original videos were fucking abysmally presented.
Could you even if you look at someone like Justicar, his presentation is awful too. But if you listen to what he's actually saying, he's fucking brilliant.
I watch all of his videos because of that.
This is something that just occurred to me, though. Do you think this could all be a result of Keemstar?
What?
This whole crap.
TOS, because he doxed a 1 million subscribers.
Oh, sorry, I thought you meant the Skeptosphere. I was thinking, what?
No! Yes, no, Keemstar inspired the Skeptosphere and Critical Inquiry. Isn't it amazing? No.
That would be amazing. I would have no trouble believing that.
No, but that's it. Essentially what I was told is that the prank channels are going to get shut down within the next couple of months, and that Keemstar, after he doxed several really big YouTubers with up to 2 million subscribers, has pretty much he's about to get shut down.
So we can just blame this all on Keemstar.
I am fine with blaming anything on. He's a cunt on YouTube. That is
that's as far as I can tell. I mean.
All of us, we can be real fucking assholes sometimes, and I'm no exception. I'm probably one of the biggest assholes here, actually.
Yep.
But I mean, we are dwarfed when it comes to the douchebagginess of Keemstar. That guy. No, listen. He beats even me at saying the word nigger. Like that's bad.
Yeah, he set the model, which I think Jenny McDermott was hoping to follow. Just be a cunt on the internet. You get the
drama horse, isn't it?
Yeah, drama horse. Now here's the thing though, is I could see, especially if they put together. I mean, this is the problem. It doesn't delegitimize the significance of what they've actually done and what it could mean, because if there's one thing we know, it's the only thing that is more easily abused than a system set up with an agenda behind it. It's a system set up that was poorly contrived and reactionary to begin with.
Would you mind if I bring on the Amos Yee for the last?
That'd be great. Yeah.
No, it's okay. I'm gonna leave now anyway because it's fucking 10 over. It's 3:10 here. It's over 3 a.m. in the fucking morning here in Sweden.
Swedistan.
Yeah, in Swedish. Oh, but by the way, I have to bend over so ISIS can defile me once more.
It's not
And,
defiling. It's simply aggressive love.
Enriching.
Oh
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
cultural
It's just-
enrichment.
Yes,
That's-
your
Bring
us
country,
some of our culture, man.
your country is
No, no.
being made so diverse, son.
No.
Take
Listen,
that culture.
everybody talks shit about Sweden, though. I do have to say, though, at night, all the burning cars, it is quite amazing to watch.
It's quite beautiful.
It's like a Christmas tree when I look from my flat.
Yeah.
Sounds romantic.
Thanks for the talk, guys. It's been lovely. Now, if you would be so kind and fuck off.
Let's talk to you.
Since we have Habib on, Habib, I actually have a question about Muslim theology. Are you well versed in it?
Yeah.
Okay, I've been dealing with the issue of sins in Islamic theology, and I came up with Livat, I think it's called, right? Livat, you know it?
Oh, Liwat, it's just homosexuality.
Yes, exactly. There is this list from a hadith with, I think, 70 of the biggest sins defined by Islam, and this one is at number 10, I think. Is that list actually ordered, as in sin number 1 is the worst sin, and sin number 70 is the worst sin?
There is something called like the great sins, or once you commit those, there is no repentment, and even if you repent, you will serve some time in hell.
Okay. Do those sins, even if you repent, entail punishment?
Yes, even if you repent, but you'll serve some time in hell, and then like you spend a million years in hell, and then you get like upgraded to heaven.
If you, for instance, commit a livat and you repent, as in fucking immediately, are you still expected to be killed?
Depends on who you ask. Now, as far as I know, like any great sin, yes, you get a chance to repent in this, like at least here, and if you don't repent, then you get killed. I don't know. There's a few of them that you get killed immediately. I think apostasy is one of them.
Yes. Also regarding apostasy, there is this really interesting study that I talked about in an earlier video. Did you know that 3% of all British Muslim students actually support killing people who leave Islam?
Dude, you wouldn't believe it. I have
Hello,
nine.
niggers.
Hello, niggers.
Here we go.
Hello.
Dude, Amos, could you say Allahu Akbar for me, please?
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah! Aloha Akbar.
Oh my God.
Shit, Sargon's here. Hey.
Hey, Amos, how's it going?
I think the chat is leaking into the stream itself.
I thought Sargon was like busy Brexit.
Oh, I've done everything I can for the Brexit now.
You've done an account?
People's inevitable inertia to vote against it.
Yeah.
No, because I looked at like Sargon stuff and like everything he's talked about is Brexit. So.
Yeah, it's been
he
quite
is
an
the
important
Brexit
issue recently.
He is the.
He would like go through it until like I'm surprised he's here actually. He would go like at it until like Brexit, which is like in a few days, right?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's tomorrow. It's today, actually. And after today, he will be making videos about the German occupation.
Listen, you goddamn Krauts. We know exactly what your plans are.
Oh, really?
You've tried it before.
You've tried it 3 times now, okay?
Yeah, they're trying to.
It's not a secret.
And I guess then you're gonna be asking us for help, huh, Sargon?
Yeah. Well, it'd make a change from the rest of Europe asking us for help, wouldn't it?
Listen, the Polish demonstrations will increase to the point where the Poles actually think they have the ability to reject and deflect foreign influences that demand to come into their borders, and then we'll see history repeat itself.
Who cares about Poland? I mean, Great Britain coming to Russia for help.
Well, you know how things change.
I don't know. I don't know much about Brexit, so are they gonna win? Are they gonna leave?
Nah, we'll probably end up staying. It's going to be completely bullshit.
They have, the Remainers have Lily Allen on their side, so.
I'm not worried about that. It's what I'm worried about are the people at home who are just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I don't know anything about this, and I'm just going to vote stay because I don't know, and it sounds scary, and fuck
Absolutely.
It
risk assessment.
Oh yeah, Godzilla will come.
It almost sounds as though more Americans have opinions on the Brexit than the Britons do.
But the thing is, the reason British people want to leave are basically the same reasons that the Americans wanted to leave the British Empire. But it all comes from this whole English common law. That's what it all stems from, this idea that we should be able to directly influence the government.
Self-govern.
Right. I mean, that's
the consent of the governed.
I'm looking at that whole situation from across the pond, and as an American, that's exactly what my thoughts are when I look at it. It's like, how can you guys not want to just be your own nation state? How can you not want to be totally sovereign? Like, why is this?
I find it baffling as well. I can't even believe it's a fucking debate.
Well, I honestly thought.
Right, like that's exactly how I feel.
Well, as a Russian, I can say I'm not surprised you want out of the USSR.
Hey guys, I have a really good idea, right? How about we take a bunch of academics who don't know shit about the real world, and then we try to create a fucking system where we forcefully put every fucking nation into it, and then we slowly drift away and fucking take away the national governments. What could possibly go wrong?
Let's just consolidate power in this unelected body and then give it money.
I honestly thought you were going to end that like with let's take a bunch of economists who know nothing about the real world, put them in an apartment, and see what happens when things stop being polite and start getting real.
Oh shit.
All right, so now we've determined that the EU is nothing more than a global reality show. Where to next?
Oh, Crow, I meant to ask you too. Did you visit Bilderberg?
No.
Everyone's
globalists. The Bilderbergers. I watched Laura Southern's weird report on Antifa. It was very inaccurate. The situation is actually worse. So I have to correct that.
Yeah, guys, I know you're laughing, but he's fucking serious. Antifa is no joke.
Did you know that a few months ago we actually had 50 black-clad people attack a police station?
Right, are these people calling themselves anti-fascists?
Yes.
And they're actually attacking people in public. That's unself-aware.
Yes, they are. They unironically.
They occupy almost an entire district of houses in Berlin.
I have the perfect fucking story about anti-fascists, if I can. I was talking to one of them about media issues, right? And he claimed that media are inherently right-wing, capitalistic, and fascist and totalitarian. So I asked him, what should we do about it, right? And he said the only way to prevent any form of fascistic, totalitarian media system is by forcefully collectivizing the entire media system and putting it under the rule of one
It's like Curb Your Enthusiasm or something.
The best thing about the Antifa in Germany, the best thing is the Anti-Deutschen.
Oh God!
I think you all have to just remember.
I love how blissfully unaware you people are of these. They're just
try and remember though. Peace is quiet, but fire is warm.
Layman, it's really, you can't really describe anti-Deutsche to non-Germans, can you? It's like
we could take the decolonized Germany paper.
The song, the Egotronic, what's it called? Reden gegen Deutschland.
It's funny to me that in this modern day and age we have a whole bunch of effectively liberals and a Jew here worrying about the freedom of the German people.
And the Russian.
Change. And a Russian. A Russian is worried about the health of Germany. A Jew is worried about those who in Germany who seek freedom.
The anti-Germans are an extreme left-wing organization that evolved out of the Antifa, and they believe that Germany as a concept and as a people and as a nation and as a culture must be abolished.
Are you sure they're not Swedish?
Wait. And as a result of that, they without any, reservations, support all foreign policy decisions made by Russia, the United States, and the UK, and Israel. They actually, and I'm not making this up, they supported the invasion of Iraq. They support every war in Gaza.
I've never heard of a more
Oh my God.
confused people.
So is
These
war
people-
supposed to be like anti-capitalist?
Dude, they walk around with shoes on their hands. Don't
No, here's the thing about
I've got something even more confusing than that.
Hey, wait. Here's the thing about the anti-Germans. They are anti-capitalist, but they believe that Germany is what causes capitalism.
Oh yes, arbitrarily. Capitalism happens because Germany. Okay.
Hitler did capitalism.
I have to mute for a second.
Yeah, I think
this is
you
the most
almost
fascinating
killed
thing
Blizzard
I've ever
with
heard in
dogs.
my life. How is this real? I mean, I've heard of anti-fat, but I didn't really take any notice of it because
I can show you some of their shit if you want.
I would love to see it.
Okay, anti-Deutsch.
This is just
please,
self-loathing
please.
taken to a new level.
Please screen share. Please screen share.
Yeah, this is what happens.
The world needs to see this. This is a real thing.
People
I've only
wonder why
experienced their
I
baby
don't
brothers
know.
Occupy movement.
That just really, I don't even know how to describe them. Every time a right-wing politician in Germany dies, or in Austria or somewhere else, they actually publish articles with titles such as "Mossad do it again," and
slogans.
So they're
this is their logo.
so they're
Wait. This is their official logo. It's very. It's always. It's the.
Oh my God.
This is fucking cancer.
Now,
man.
the funniest thing that these people actually believe in a Jewish world conspiracy, but the thing is, they believe it's a good thing.
I mean, here's a question though. I mean, like, if I become one of their leaders, do I get my own apartment in
You can
Berlin?
only be one of their leaders if you're not German.
I'm not German, and I'm Jewish, and I'm an American.
Yeah, so you get extra privileged status.
So I have
It's
in hell
finally
to be-
happened. It's finally happened. I found.
Okay,
a
and the
group that
thing
would
is,
give me
I
the
wanted
privilege
to.
everyone said I had.
I wanted to reserve this for a video I was making. They have a band, and it's fairly popular in these circles, and it's called Egotronic.
Good.
And the lyrics.
Everyone mute ahead of time, just so that we can. Well, so the audience can listen.
No, I can't play the song, but the lyrics are something along "rave against Germany," raving against Germany, and one of the songs is literally called "The Right Opinion." You must have the right opinion and stuff like that. But yeah,
All set to a dubstep beat, right? All set to a dubstep beat.
Actually, yes.
Okay, so I'm going to
Layman, did I forget anything?
You forgot there are actually quite a few anti-Deutsche bands, and one of my absolutely favorite slogans of all time is, "Why do we have to listen to brown filth, as in Nazi filth? Why can't we all just deport them?"
Guys, that one thing. All these guys are German, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So why don't they just kill themselves and leave everyone
There
alone?
actually is a movement within the anti-Deutsche to stop procreating. There actually is a movement in them.
I mean, didn't one of your politicians in Germany say that there will be fewer Germans because of the immigration crisis, and that
it's
that's
a good thing.
They literally said
Disgusting
that.
woman.
Oh my God.
Disgusting woman.
Yeah,
But that's fucking mainstream anti-Deutsch. That's like, nobody cares. We're talking about the proper fucking anti-Deutsch faggot.
No, I mean,
There's
honestly,
no
I
way
want
to
to see.
describe these people to English fags.
I want to see a video of a reaction video by Vladimir Putin watching these videos. I would.
But yeah, I'm going to because Laura Southern, respect to her for what she does, but she completely missed the story here.
If you want to see what his reaction
fuck?
would.
Whoa.
Whoa.
Fucking drones coming near your house, huh?
If you want to see his reaction, you can basically see the reaction he did when a 12-year-old girl asked him what would he do if he saw Poroshenko and Erdogan drowning in a lake, and who would he save. That face would be the face he would make seeing that woman.
See, I just imagine a man looking at a perfectly cooked steak.
Layman, maybe we should work together on the video on the Anti-Deutsche.
Dude, I'm not fucking
Please,
working with you anymore. Nigga, you come up to me like in fucking 2 a.m. Let's do a video. And by 6 a.m. you put the video fucking online without even fucking asking me.
Yeah, you know what? Crowd actually did that to me yesterday too. He was like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, you want to collab on this?" And I sent him a link, and he was like, "Oh, you saw that? I'm actually working on something right now." And then he published the video.
Yeah, dude, Crowd, I fucking love you, man.
Yeah, what
At least, hold on. At least
just because you lack German efficiency, you know, just because you're not able to.
Crowd. You asked me to record a little piece for your video. You asked me to record me saying over 9,000 for some odd reason.
Yeah, but the thing is,
with a little bit of a script that I wrote, and that video never came out. Talk about
because
efficiency.
the audio was broken. But yeah, we're going to get that working anyway sooner or later. But yeah, Layman, on the weekend we can work together on the Antifa thing and the anti-Deutsch thing. I'll send you the script.
No, you hurt my feelings, dude. You gotta come up with something to make me happy.
Welcome to Germany.
Just do your best impression. You know his accent.
Something from the Lebensraum.
Awkward silence.
Oh yeah.
So okay, let's just change from.
I think we
Sargon.
can end the stream right now.
Sargon,
Yo,
I have a question.
question.
Sargon, when are you gonna make a video about me?
About you?
Yeah.
God, you make yourself sound so important. It's not like you're just going to jail for free speech, aren't you? I mean, it's not anything that bad, is it?
That's not like anybody cares.
Come on, I made a good video.
Wait,
Yeah,
did someone
live
mislead you?
We'll have a live stream. We'll just shoot shit.
Well, I kind of hate you for one reason though. I mean, I've been trying to get any Muslim to talk to me, not debate, just to talk to me on my channel because I'm an ex-Muslim atheist, and they all avoid me like hell. And you just hump the Quran a couple of times, and they can't talk to you on your channel. Like, what the fuck?
That's what happens, buddy.
Because Habib, you're not offensive enough.
So
No, I don't know, but what do you expect from a conversation like that? I thought, haven't we like bashed Christianity to know like the kind of people that we talk to?
well, what do I expect? I expect solutions. I mean,
I have a final solution for you.
No, here's the thing. Like even even the Muslims that are living here in the Middle East, for example, they're all facing the same problem. The terrorist problem is something that we all face. However, for them, they just deny that it's a Muslim problem. They just go like, no, they're not true Muslims. So I just want to have a conversation. Okay, what if they are not a real Muslim? Let's just go with that kind of mindset. How do you suggest to solve it? Are you just gonna sit there and go like, not my problem, they're not Muslims?
What is
That's pretty much what they're saying.
That is what they're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, even our president here in the States, our wonderful President Fuck Up, as I like to call him, he literally said in his speech on the Orlando shooting, quite literally said that ISIS is not bringing Islam to the world. He literally said this.
Just to Orlando. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm not going to. Actually, it was hateful. So, no, it was a Muslim extremist walks into a gay bar in Orlando. The bartender asks, "What do you have?" He looks around. The other patron says, "Shots for everyone."
Yeah, I heard that.
Did you watch some of the alt-right videos on the Orlando terror attack?
I didn't see any actually.
Don't.
I bet they're completely bad.
Just don't. Just don't. Just don't.
Give us an
I
example.
didn't see any.
Now I'm morbidly curious.
Yeah.
I get a lot of alt-right followers. I have a lot of them on Twitter, and whenever I talk about whatever topic.
Oh, if you're anti-SJW, the alt-right will just they flock to you, and then once they discover that, you don't believe that so much of cultural action or identity is based in genetic heritage. Oh, you're just ignorant.
The thing about me is,
Emperor, you're a
even when I tell these people to fuck off, they still stay around. He's German. He's German. Oh, wonderful.
They're just hoping you're gonna finally dig out your Guyana uncle's grey uniform.
I'll just red pill them right here. My dad's English, so that's one part of my genes, Sour Dan, and the other thing, I'm Prussian, East Prussian.
You've got some eternal Anglo.
The Prussians are a Germanicized Slavic nation, meaning my genes are probably a lot Slavic.
Dude, I'm actually a Black Asian midget, so I know that feel.
Dr. Layman's only like 3 feet.
The fuck did you say?
I said the rapiers suck and you know it.
Nigga.
Living a lie related.
Dude, I'm gonna. If we ever fucking meet up, I'm gonna fuck you up so bad. I'm gonna rub your tummy.
Dude, I'm not like a fucking dwarf, a Tolkien-esque dwarf. I am literally indestructible. I'll kill you.
I will literally fucking rub your tummy and kiss on the teeth.
When are we gonna fight?
You know,
yeah, dude, during the fight.
Even though well, see, here's the thing. Even though it curves to the left as it was, my saber is still much bigger than either of yours.
Oh.
Boys.
That's sexist, dude.
I think it's time to end the stream.
Yeah,
we've clearly come to that point.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. From me and Memory both, just thanks so much, guys.
Jeff, I wanted to host this stream to promote your channel, so I guess I can give you the last word.
Thanks for having me on, everybody. I'm Jeff Holiday, and I'm just so thankful I got to have so many wonderful people to talk to this afternoon. It's
fucking
amazing.
die of cancer, you faggot.
He's got a good channel. Go check him out.
Yeah, he does.
Link is in the description.
If you've ever wanted to see a family of hippies speak more sense than your best educated friends, that's the one to go to.
Yeah, he really is. I noticed this channel when he had, I don't know, like 500 subscribers or something.
Yeah, something like that.
He's got more than I do. Come on,
Aw.
you're around like 7 or 8.
It's full of cultural